June's life was plotted out long before he could spell his own name. In Busan, there's old money, but it's never clean. It comes from the foggy margins of ports and smuggled routes, from names spoken softly at customs, cargo manifests rewritten in darkness, men who seem friendly in daylight but make ugly things disappear after hours. The family's public face gleams: shipping companies, fisheries, imports, real estate, respectable stuff, but power stays hidden, moving like deep currents beneath the surface. The Han family owned those currents. For generations, they ran everything that mattered. Jun was just 5 when a routine blood test at the family's private clinic turned his world on its head. He remembers it in flashes: the sharp smell of disinfectant, a cartoon blaring from the corner, needles stinging his skin, his mother's grip squeezing his hand too tight, the doctor's face going blank as she read the numbers. Then came the hushed adult voices behind closed doors. He waited out in the hallway, swinging shiny shoes and listening to voices spill through the crack. When the door finally opened, his mother's eyes were swollen and red. His father looked carved from stone, and his grandfather looked like he'd won something. Omega. Even as a kid, Jun knew the weight behind that word. In their world, it meant everything. And it wasn't just that. Test after test revealed markers that made grown-ups speak in hushed tones: rare, healthy, good blood, perfect compatibility, high fertility potential. A year in, Jun transformed from child to investment. That night, his grandfather unlocked a hidden cabinet, poured some imported whiskey, and made a call halfway around the world. Years before, Chairman Han had fought for Pacific routes, and near Long Beach he'd been cornered, cars ablaze, people dying, trapped. Another syndicate boss stepped in, an American named Blackwell, showing up with enough firepower to change the city's fate. He saved Han, and together they built an alliance: joint smuggling, shared laundered cash, protection, and something resembling friendship. Promises were made over whiskey. If Han's grandchild turned out a fertile Omega, that kid would marry Blackwell's alpha grandson. Jun was 5 when that bargain began to take shape. His childhood warped and bent around it, the adults molding him for a deal he hadn't even agreed to. He got English tutors at 7. At 8, he was corrected for slouching at dinner. At 10, he learned etiquette, posture, greetings, wine, American history, negotiation tactics, household management, and how to treat people who thought they were important. At 11, he learned to keep smiling while older men commented on his looks. At 12, he started avoiding mirrors. His mother tried in quiet ways: sweets after lessons, letting him stay up late for the dramas, soothing hugs when nightmares came. But she never took him out of the lessons, never fought the family, never said what he needed most: "You don't have to do this." His father drifted away, speaking less every year. Later, Jun realized that distance for what it was: shame, helplessness, cowardice. Then, at 13, puberty slammed into him like a prison gate. The doctors spoke in clinical terms while his mother sobbed in the corner. Prime grade Omega, strong cycles, exceptional prospects for conception. The engagement went public that month. Jun stood in cream silk, furious enough to light the house ablaze. Grandfather soaked up congratulations. Everyone toasted his future. Nobody cared about June's feelings. That night, he ripped the ceremonial bracelet off so hard it cut his wrist. He only knew the name of the person he was promised to: Maddox Blackwell. Each year brought a new photo: broad-shouldered, stern at 17, expensive-looking at 21, dangerous at 25. Always in a suit, eyes always sharp and unreadable. Jun hated that face, hated the ocean between them, hated how the adults smiled when the photos arrived. Most of all, he despised how they acted like the marriage was already real and he just hadn't caught up. So Jun rebelled. Where Omegas should be soft, he was loud. Where they wanted obedience, he fought. Skipped etiquette lessons. Learned boxing from a former enforcer. Swore a lot. Got suspended twice. Broke a boy's nose for calling him future wife. Told his grandfather he'd make himself unbearable if forced into marriage. The old man only smiled. Then your husband will need to be strong. Jun wanted to burn his world down. Years slipped by anyway. At 20, with no rescue, no collapse of tradition, and zero mercy, Jun boarded a private flight to California. 11 hours staring out the window, dreaming up 17 ways to ruin everything. Maddox Blackwell barely remembered his parents. Rivals murdered them when he was 3. Just bits and pieces. A window exploding, his mother shoving him down, blood everywhere, smoke inside the car. A man dragging him out while gunshots cracked the night open. His grandfather raised him, teaching Maddox that grief was weakness and survival meant everything. He learned numbers before stories, firearms before trust, negotiation before comfort. By 15, he could sniff out a lie before adults even blinked. At 17, he heard about the Korean Omega he was meant to marry, didn't react. At 25, he got Junhan's first grown-up portrait, dark blue suit, razor-sharp jaw, furious eyes, lips pressed tight in clear displeasure. Maddox studied it for hours, and then quietly tucked it inside his jacket. Kept every updated photo after that. At 27, he ordered a full file, not because he doubted the alliance, but to know this person. Grades, languages, temper outbursts, security videos, who Jun hung out with, his medical history, that Jun liked tea over coffee, hated strawberries, favored his right leg when tired because of an old knee injury, clenched his jaw before arguments, once punched a classmate, and grinned while bloodied. Maddox grew quietly obsessed. When his grandfather had a stroke, Maddox took over the syndicate, quick and ruthless like an avalanche. By 32, he controlled ports, casinos, politicians, and more. Feared, respected, untouchable. So when Jun's plane touched down, Maddox waited at the front steps of the cliffside estate, calm as someone who'd spent half his life waiting. A black car crawled up the drive, outstepped Jun. Crisp trousers, sharp coat, sunglasses, and the look of someone on his way to execution. Smaller than expected, but far more alive than any photo. Jun flicked off the glasses, eyed Maddox, and said crisply, "You're older than the pictures." Maddox almost smiled. "You're angrier." Jun's mouth tightened. Maddox approved. Fire suited him. Maddox stepped forward, respectful, and welcomed Jun. Jun laughed, brittle as glass. "This is not my home," then brushed right past him. Maddox watched, pulse steady, interest peaked. The estate loomed over the Pacific, glass and stone every which way, gardens cut into terraces, security everywhere. Less house, more fortress. Jun hated it. Too clean, too controlled. Staff greeted him with surgical politeness. Room already stocked and sorted. Korean skincare brands here, favorite tea there. Books he'd mentioned offhand years ago. Jun froze. Someone had clearly dug deep into his life. He stormed downstairs, hunting for blood. Found Maddox, calm, multitasking in the office. Maddox muted the call when Jun barged in. Jun said, "You searched my life." Maddox, "I prepared for your arrival." Jun, "You investigated me." Maddox didn't blink. "Yes." Jun, "You know my size?" Maddox, "Yes." Jun, "You filled my room with things I like." Maddox, "Yes." Jun slammed the desk. "That's insane." Maddox, "It's thorough." Jun said. I won't share your bed. You have your own suite. I won't marry you. We'll talk about timing later. I'll leave. Maddox looked at him for a second, not safely. Jun's anger sharpened. Threat? Fact. Something shifted. The room felt colder. Jun stomped out. Maddox unmuted the call. Continue. Jun tested every boundary he could. Ignored schedules, skipped dinners, insulted the chef, flirted with guards for laughs, entered forbidden rooms, called Maddox a controlling psychopath in front of lieutenants. Maddox never raised his voice, which honestly made everything worse. On the third day, Jun tried to escape. He stole a phone, disabled an alarm, scaled a wall, hit the road. The headlights found him before he got far. Maddox drove himself. Get in, Maddox said. Jun kept walking. Maddox, 10 seconds before someone less patient grabs you. Go to hell. 8. Jun flipped him off. 6. Arrogant bastard. 3. Jun finally got in. They drove, ocean stretching out, anger crackling between them. Jun spat. Why not just chain me up? Maddox, if I cage you, you'll just learn to hate bars. I want you to understand walls. Jun stared, for the first time sensing the scale of what surrounded Maddox. Not just guards and riches, but enemies, obligations, violence baked into everyday life. It didn't make him feel safer. It made him feel trapped. Back inside, Maddox stopped near the stairs. Run if you need. Test me if you need. But don't confuse rebellion with freedom. Jun lay awake, furious, those words stuck in his head. Yet other things stuck too. Maddox speaking Korean to the housekeeper. Maddox remembering how Jun hated sweet desserts after just one comment. Maddox always standing when Jun entered the room. Maddox sending flowers to Jun's mother in Busan when she was sick. Maddox stopping a meeting short because Jun had said he wanted to see the tide pools at sunset. He was terrifying and attentive in a way that made Jun's skin itch. Unacceptable. So Jun doubled down. Tiny shorts at breakfast, asked if Maddox was compensating for emotional voids with fancy watches, told staff he might seduce a rival just for kicks. Finally, Maddox shot him a look across the breakfast table. Quietly dangerous. Try. Jun nearly spit out his tea. At least the monster could be rattled. Life inside Blackwell Estate ran like clockwork. Cars appeared before Jun even asked. Meetings danced around Maddox's schedule. Meals arrived at the precise moment hunger hit. Problems evaporated before Jun could complain. Even the weather felt scheduled. It grated on him. Jun knew power, but Busan power was loud, elders shouting, relatives barging, deals struck with a handshake and a shout. Maddox's power was silent, precise, and needed no announcement. Jun hated how smooth it all was, but he started to see why people obeyed. A week in, Maddox hosted a dinner. 2 judges, a shipping executive, a sweaty city councilman, an entertainment investor wrapped in cartel rumors, and Mrs. Alvarez, an old woman treated like royalty. Jun was told 2 hours ahead. You're using me as decoration, he said. I'm introducing my future husband, Maddox replied. I'd rather choke. You may do so after dessert. Jun wanted to flip the table. Instead, he dressed to stun. Black silk, bare neck, hair slicked back, expression fierce. He entered. Conversation halted. Maddox pulled out his chair. Jun sat, refusing to appear shaken. Dinner rolled along. Jun said little, just watching. The judges measured Maddox. The councilman sweated every time money came up. The executive lied a lot. Mrs. Alvarez missed nothing. Halfway in, the entertainment investor grinned at Jun. So this is the Korean jewel everyone's talking about? Jun smiled, all sharp teeth. And you must be the face that proves money can't buy taste. Mrs. Alvarez laughed. The investor stiffened. Maddox didn't flinch, but June caught the satisfaction radiating from him. Later, shipping routes came up. Jun corrected the executive's numbers, explained why the mistake would cost $12 million over 2 quarters. Silence. Maddox turned slowly toward Jun. Jun sipped water. What? Mrs. Alvarez smiled. Oh, she said quietly. I like him. After the guests left, Maddox found Jun standing alone on the terrace, staring out at water-lit silver by the moon. The air felt thick, salted and quiet. Not the sort of place for confrontation, but June didn't waste any time. You embarrassed your ally, June said, sharper than the night air. The accusation landed hard. He was careless, Maddox snapped back. No apology, just cold facts. Jun shook his head. You brought me in to calm them down, make them feel safe. I brought you in because I wanted them to see you, Maddox said. His voice held something Jun couldn't quite name. Jun folded his arms, defensive. As breeding stock. He hated how blunt that sounded. Maddox's answer came fast and didn't match expectations. As dangerous. That knocked Jun right off balance. He actually showed it. Eyes wide, stunned. Maddox stepped closer, hands jammed in his pockets, his tie askew now that the guests were gone. More human, less polished. You think I want some passive Omega smiling beside me? Maddox's tone dropped to something quieter, more intimate. That'd insult both of us. Jun's pulse went wild, a mess of irritation and something else, buried deep. You did all this without asking me, he said, voice wavering between accusation and genuine confusion. Yes, Maddox replied, not even bothered. And you still expect marriage? Yes. You're impossible, Jun muttered. I'm consistent. The words weren't even harsh, just matter of fact. Jun glared at the dark horizon. Staring at Maddox felt too much like surrender. You looked pleased in there. I was. Why? Maddox's gaze lingered, slow and obvious. Because they underestimated you for 7 minutes. Jun probably should have walked away right then. He didn't. He stayed because the air between them felt suddenly tangled, electric and cramped. The first time Jun saw Maddox unleash violence, it was so quick, he later wondered if he'd imagined it. A month after moving in, Jun demanded to go to a nightclub opening, something flashy and public, part of Maddox's legitimate empire. I'm not a prisoner, he argued. Maddox wasn't impressed. It's vulnerable. I'll bring guards. I have guards. Mine'll be better dressed, Jun said, half smirking. Maddox stared for way too long, then finally grunted, Stay near me. Jun counted that as a win. The club was all mirrors, excess, and music that thumped as much as his own restless heart. Maddox moved through the crowd like a predator, easy, barely aware of the people parting around him. Jun wore silver gray and loved the glances he got. He danced once, ignored Maddox twice, and drank something Maddox had obviously pre-approved. It happened at the bar. While Maddox talked with 2 investors, some guy slipped in beside Jun. Expensive suit, but cheap eyes. I hear you're the famous fiancé, he said, smiling like he owned the place. I hear nothing about you, Jun replied, sharp and cold. The guy laughed and then stupidly put a hand low on Jun's back. Wrong move. Jun twisted, grip lightning fast, then Maddox was suddenly there. No warning, No raised voice, just pure efficiency. 1 second he was across the room, the next his hands were on the intruder, elbow locked, wrist torqued down. Something snapped, loud enough to split the music. The man shrieked. Everyone scattered. Maddox leaned in, eyes flat and voice calm. You touched what is mine. Use your other hand to apologize. The man babbled. Maddox let him go, like letting go of something unpleasant. Security dragged him off. Then Maddox turned to Jun, fussed over his jacket with calm, careful hands, like they hadn't just shattered someone's arm. Are you hurt? Jun just stared. No. Good. Maddox walked him out while the room boiled in chaos. In the car, Jun sat straight-backed and angry. That was insane. He was warned. You broke his arm. He'll recover. You said I was yours. Maddox looked out the window. Yes. Jun's breath caught. He barely managed. I'm not, half furious with his own reaction. Maddox didn't look at him. No, not yet. Jun didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Maddox's hands calmly inflicting damage, then calmly buttoning his coat. After that, resistance got messy. Jun still argued, still challenged Maddox, insisting he hated controlling men and emotional black holes, but he also found himself in Maddox's office late at night, first with actual questions about business, law, shipping routes, rivalries, the weird overlapping syndicate accounts. Maddox answered what he wanted, silent on what he didn't. Jun hated that. But the late-night visits kept happening. Sometimes they talked business, sometimes they just sat, not needing words. Jun noticed Maddox barely drank whiskey, he liked tea. He read history when stressed. He preferred silence to music. Old scars crossed his ribs from knife fights. He never talked about his family unless Jun asked directly. One night, Jun did. Maddox stood at the window for a long time before replying. My mother died in the car. His voice was level, flat. Jun swallowed. His throat hurt. Your father? Maddox's face didn't change. He lived 3 days. Just long enough to tell my grandfather who ordered it. What happened to them? They stopped being a problem. Jun felt sick. But beneath sick was something more dangerous. Understanding. You were 3, Jun whispered. Yes. No one should remember that. Memory doesn't ask permission. The office felt smaller, the air tighter. Jun drifted closer without meaning to. Maddox met his gaze. Neither moved. Jun panicked at his own softness and blurted, You're still emotionally stunted. Maddox barked a laugh, real and sharp and warm. Jun nearly stumbled. He'd never heard Maddox laugh before. It felt unfair, almost intimate. Jun spent the next 3 days furious that Maddox could laugh at all. It was easier when he could file Maddox under scary tyrant or obsessive bastard. A man with a laugh was harder to hate, especially when he looked younger for it. Worse, Maddox laughed because of him. So Jun avoided him the only way he knew how. Early breakfast, lunch in the garden, dinner sent up to his room. He drifted away any time Maddox entered a room. Politeness became a weapon. Answers clipped and icy, the staff noticed. Of course they did. Nothing went unseen in Maddox's estate. Mrs. Delaney, the house manager with nerves of steel, set a bowl of fruit beside Jun and said, You're punishing yourself more than him. I'm not punishing anyone. You've eaten 2 crackers in resentment since yesterday. Jun scowled. She walked off, unconcerned. Traitor. Avoidance finally ended because Jun got bored, and because Maddox aggravatingly gave him space. No demands, no texts, no confrontations, just silence. That felt almost worse, like Jun was the one out of balance. On the fourth night, he found Maddox in the basement gym, the place built for privacy and power. Maddox was shirtless, wrapping his hands. One of his security captains held pads. Jun froze in the doorway. He knew Maddox was strong, but seeing him stripped of suits made that knowledge real. Shoulders broad, waist narrow, muscle built through necessity, not vanity. Scars pale against heated skin. The captain saw him first. Maddox turned. Their eyes met. Jun wondered if retreating would be dignified. Maddox asked, "Come in or stare from the hall. Decide quickly." Jun marched in, arms crossed. "You're arrogant, even half naked." "I contain multitudes." The captain tried not to laugh. Maddox slipped gloves on. 5 minutes, he told the captain, who immediately fled. Jun squared up. "You let me avoid you. You wanted distance. You didn't care?" Maddox moved to the heavy bag. "I cared. I chose not to chase." Then he started hitting the bag. Each punch whipped through the air, pure force and control. Jun flinched despite himself. Violence pooled in the room, contained but real. Jun blurted, "Do you enjoy scaring people?" "No." Another punch. "I enjoy clarity." Another. "Pain clarifies things." "That's messed up." "It often is." Jun circled, barely realizing he was moving. "You could have chased me." "Yes." "You didn't?" "No." "Why?" Maddox stopped the bag with one palm, breathing easy. "Because if I force every step, I'll never know when you take one willingly." Jun's mouth went dry. He hated when Maddox said things like that, hated more how it always made him soften. He retorted, "Your form's sloppy on the left." Maddox handed over a glove. "Show me." Jun blinked. "I wasn't volunteering." "Cowardice doesn't suit you." Jun snatched the glove. 20 minutes later, they were sparring. While Jun attacked with speed and irritation, Maddox blocked everything with infuriating ease. Jun was quick. Maddox was unmovable. He caught Jun's wrists, redirected strikes, sidestepped so Jun nearly tripped. Jun snapped, "You're enjoying this." "Yes." He kicked low. Maddox trapped his ankle, and suddenly Jun was pressed up against him, one leg caught, hands on broad shoulders. Everything stopped. Jun felt Maddox's breath, salty sweat, faint cologne, the heavy alpha scent underneath. Their eyes locked. Maddox let go, slow. Jun backed away too fast. "You cheated." "I adapted." "You're smug." "I'm winning." Jun threw his gloves and bolted. Maddox laughed. Again, completely unfair. That night, Jun dreamed of hands at his waist and woke up angry. He blamed hormones and jet lag, California's air quality, anything. His body didn't believe any of it. Being Omega always felt like a burden. Suppressants helped, but instincts lingered, stubborn and unpredictable. Heat cycles, scent, the inevitable gravitation toward dominance. Around Maddox, those instincts got loud in ways Jun hated. He called Busan. His mother answered on the second ring, worried, gentle. "Jun, don't cry." "I wasn't going to." "You were." "I thought about it." Jun smiled despite himself. They talked small, weather, a cousin's hair, an aunt pretending arthritis whenever dishes needed cleaning. Then she eyed him, serious. "You look thinner." "I'm fine." "You look unsettled." Jun leaned back. "He's awful." Controlling." Calm in ways that make you want to set things on fire." Violent." Her eyebrows shot up. "Violent?" "He broke a man's arm." She inhaled, shocked. Jun hurried. "The man touched me first." Pause. Did Maddox hurt you? No. Threaten you? No. Force you? Jun hesitated. No. She looked relieved, too relieved. That twisted something inside him. Why do you sound confused? She asked gently. Because he's kinder than I wanted. Because he scares me less than he should. Because he makes me feel both chosen and trapped. Jun said instead, everyone made this decision for me. Her face changed. Old regret surfaced. I know. No, you accepted it. I survived it, she snapped. There was steel in her voice. When I married your father, people claimed duty gets easier if you pretend it's graceful. That's a lie. Duty just becomes familiar. Jun swallowed hard. Then why didn't you stop this? I didn't know how. She met his eyes, unwavering. But you still can. He frowned. They'll never allow that. I'm not talking about them. Her words stuck long after the call ended. You still can. The next evening, Jun walked straight into Maddox's office. No knock. Maddox had 2 suit-clad men at his desk. They stood when Jun entered. Jun ignored them, sat on the desk edge. I'm stealing him. Maddox nodded at his men. Leave. They vanished, fast. Jun said, I want to see the city. You've seen parts. Not through bulletproof glass. It's safer that way. I didn't ask about safety. Maddox leaned back. What are you asking? Jun met his gaze, steady. Give me 1 day to choose everywhere we go. A pause, then Maddox nodded. Tomorrow. Jun blinked, surprised. That easy? No. Maddox's mouth twitched. But I'm trying something new. What? Trust. Jun's pulse jumped. He scowled. Don't make it weird. You do that enough for both of us. Jun grabbed a pen and threw it at him. Maddox caught it, unfazed. The next morning, California looked offensively beautiful. Bright sky, cool air, everything neat. Jun came downstairs in jeans, boots, sweater. No silk, no show, just clothes he'd wear if nobody cared. Maddox waited near the front door, as expected. Coat, trousers, expensive watch, unreadable expression. He looked like he was going to a hostile takeover, not a date. Jun eyed him. You dress like tax fraud. Maddox glanced at himself. You dress like a student about to disappoint his parents. Jun smiled, could barely help it. Perfect. Let's go. He saw 2 SUVs and a sedan ready in the drive. Jun stopped. No. Maddox followed his gaze. No? No convoy. Jun. No armed parade, no 6-car circus, no guys pretending earpieces are invisible. They aren't invisible. I know, that's my point. Maddox ran a hand over his jaw. 1 car, 2 guards at distance. 1 car, no visible security. Can't do that. Jun folded his arms. Then I'm going back upstairs. They stared at each other. A gull shrieked overhead. Finally, Maddox sighed. 1 car, 1 driver, security out of sight. Jun pointed. You can compromise. I can prioritize. Same thing. It isn't. Jun walked past Maddox toward the sedan before he could recover. Victory tasted sweet. Jun had pictured the city as something extreme, either splashed in the movie star glitter or drowning in dirt. The reality? It was neither and both, in layers. Money and poverty lived side by side. Palm trees fought for space with split sidewalks, fancy boutiques rubbed elbows with neighborhoods built sheerly on grit. There were murals, there was traffic, ocean air thick with old money, new money, and a bunch of people awkwardly avoiding eye contact. Busan always felt like it pressed up, every inch used, but this city sprawled out as if it deserved the space, as if it refused to apologize. Jun loved it from the start, but kept that secret stuck behind his teeth. Maddox didn't need GPS for the first stop. A Korean bakery somewhere in a web of streets Jun would have gotten lost in twice. Jun eyed him, suspicious. "You come here a lot." Maddox gave him one of his answers that left you thinking. "You might want it someday." Jun nearly tripped walking in. That was an answer pointed enough to leave bruises. Inside, glass cases shined with golden pastries. The smell was ridiculous. Little groups of older women chatted behind the counter, and a kid with silver hair almost dropped his tray when he saw Maddox. "Mr. Blackwell," Maddox gave the kid a slow once-over and said, "You're taller." The kid grinned like he'd been waiting for that moment. Jun stared at Maddox. "You know bakery children?" Maddox shrugged as if that made sense. "The owner. Her grandson works mornings." Jun's suspicion deepened. "You know everyone." Maddox handed him a tray. "Only the useful ones." The bakery owner stormed out, flour covering her apron. She saw Maddox and smacked his arm hard enough to make Jun laugh. "You visit after 6 months? Ungrateful." Maddox gestured vaguely. "I brought company." Her gaze hit Jun, froze. Then the ice melted right off, warmth flooding her face. "So this is the one." Jun almost dropped the tongs. "There is no one." Maddox stayed silent, but the bakery owner ignored him and packed extra pastries into box after box. Afterward, they wandered through side streets blessed with purple jacaranda trees and no obvious security in sight. Jun felt the illusion of privacy, but he knew Maddox never risked real aloneness. He chewed warm red bean bread, voice muffled. "You're less hated here than I expected." Maddox took pride in his answer. "I pay people on time." Jun rolled his eyes. "You're a genius." Maddox shrugged. "It helps." Jun couldn't resist a sideways glance. "Did you come here just because of me?" Maddox kept it vague. "I came before you arrived." "Why?" Jun pressed. Maddox looked away. "To know where you might feel less alone?" Jun nearly tripped again. The answer was the kind of thing he thought men like Maddox simply didn't say or feel. So he covered up with aggression. "That's manipulative." Maddox nodded. "Yes." Jun tried again. "At least you admit it." "I usually do." Silence settled between them, dangerous because it felt comfortable. In retaliation, because comfort was suspicious, Jun picked their next destination, a cluttered, open-air market jammed with vintage stalls, street food, noise, and nowhere to hide. Maddox's dislike radiated in the way his shoulders tightened half an inch. Jun grinned. Perfect. They moved together through the masses. Vendors shouted. Music brawled with the crowd. Someone sold candles smelling like pine and heartbreak. Jun prodded everything, scarves, old records, sunglasses. He held up a ceramic frog. "Look, it's you." Grim, expensive looking. Maddox bought it without comment, infuriatingly literal. "You're not serious." "You picked it." "I was joking. Ownership is complex." Jun grabbed the bag and strode ahead, Maddox trailing, way too amused. At a jewelry stall, Jun stopped, admiring a sharp silver ring. He reached out. So did Maddox. Their fingers brushed. Heat zipped straight up Jun's arm. He jerked back, flustered. The elderly vendor watched them, borderline giddy. "Couples discount," Jun spat. "We're not a couple." Maddox replied, "We'll take 2. Jun whipped toward him. "We absolutely will not." Maddox paid anyway. Jun wore the ring, complaining for 10 minutes straight. Lunch meant a hole-in-the-wall seafood spot by the pier. Plastic tables, boisterous families, food so fresh it bordered on divine. Jun devoured his meal as if he needed it to live, and Maddox watched him, unashamed. "Stop staring," Jun muttered. Maddox looked thoughtful. "You're fiercer than birds." Jun kicked his shin under the table. Maddox barely blinked. "Why do you keep looking at me?" Jun challenged. Maddox gave the kind of answer that twists inside you. Because for years you were just paperwork, photos, reports, numbers. Now you're real, loud, rude, beautiful, contradictory. Jun swallowed. The room grew blurry. You say disturbing things at lunch, Maddox nodded. I say true things. That's worse. Maddox smiled, and Jun hated how much he wanted to see it again. Trouble arrived like cold air an hour later. Jun felt it before seeing it. The way Maddox slowed, checked over Jun's shoulder as three men peeled off from a van in the parking lot, hands hidden, eyes locked on them, not tourists or shoppers. Jun's adrenaline spiked. Maddox's hand landed on his back, guiding him. Walk! Jun obeyed, angry at himself. The first attacker sped up, the second reached inside his jacket, then chaos unfolded. A black SUV blocked the lane, and plainclothes security spilled out from every corner. Bodies hit pavement. Attackers slammed into walls. One ran and got snatched mid-sprint. Jun barely registered it all before Maddox physically turned him, shielding him. Jun snapped, fiery. You lied. You brought an army. Maddox was calm. I brought enough. You said unseen. They were. Jun wanted to scream, but checked Maddox for injury instead. No wounds, no blood, just a little smear near his cuff. Maddox noticed Jun's grip. You checked me first. I was checking for stains, Jun lied. Maddox's eyes flashed with doubt. Jun stormed toward the car, hands trembling all the way home. The drive was suffocating. Jun stared out the window, city sliding by. Maddox was a statue across from him, his posture almost relaxed, if you didn't know better. Jun knew better now. Maddox's phone showed 3 fresh texts, 2 ignored calls, a faint bloodstain. The world outside kept spinning, indifferent to the violence. Jun's pulse wouldn't settle. You lied, he said. Maddox answered, I adapted. That's not the same. Often it is. Jun spun sharply. You let me think we were alone. We were alone enough for what you wanted. I could have been hurt. Maddox's certainty burned. No, you can't know that. I can. Jun laughed bitterly. You think you control everything. Maddox's gaze was deadly clear. No, only what I can reach. Jun looked away. The truth in that answer felt personal. Back at the estate, something had changed. Staff hustled. Doors locked that were usually left open. 2 new guards pretended to admire paintings but scanned everything. No one told Jun a thing. That lasted 7 minutes. Then he barged into Maddox's office, where 3 lieutenants debated maps and code names. Jun said, Out. Maddox repeated it. They left. Jun demanded answers. Who were the men? Where did they come from? What was expected of him? Maddox stayed at the desk, unyielding. I expect you safe. Jun saw red, swept files off the desk. You don't decide what I can handle. Maddox stood, height and presence transforming the air. No, I decide what reaches you. Jun stepped closer. I'm not something to shield and store. Maddox's voice was steely. You are what they came for. Jun said what he'd never planned. Then teach me. Silence. Maddox searched his face. How to survive my world. Jun nodded. Something flickered in Maddox. Respect. Training started at dawn. By 6:10, Jun considered murder. The gym was freezing, filled with Maddox, 2 instructors, mats, dummy knives, and Jun's patience leaking out. This is punishment, Maddox smiled. Requested education, Jun grumbled. This is fascism. Maddox corrected. Warm up. Jun lunged for a knife. He was disarmed in seconds. By breakfast, his wrists matched his bruised ego. By lunch, he could break a wrist hold, strike a throat, spot a tail. By dinner, his arms barely lifted chopsticks. Maddox sat across the table, elegant and observant. You enjoy this? Maddox's answer was honest. I enjoy competence. Jun threw his roll. Maddox caught it and buttered it, unfazed. Day after day, rhythms formed, training before dawn, business briefings if Jun demanded, dinner, surprisingly, sometimes real conversation, nights in the office where Jun slipped in under the guise of accident. He learned people, boundaries, underground shipping routes which judges were corrupt, which ones simply vain, which ones dangerous. Maddox's people feared disappointing him more than they feared yelling. He didn't yell, he remembered. Jun realized Maddox watched him learning, no, studied him. One evening, Jun corrected a finance error faster than two accountants. Maddox appeared in the office doorway. You hated finance lessons, Jun shrugged. Still do. Maddox smiled faintly. You're excellent, Jun brushed it off. I hate everything I'm excellent at. Maddox's mouth quirked, including tormenting me. Top of my list. Their eyes lingered. Jun broke first, brushing Maddox's chest, accidentally. The pulse in his throat was his own secret. The first scent incident snuck up on Jun 3 weeks in. Stress, biology, fate, and his own forgetfulness. Suppressants usually kept things manageable, but his hormones rebelled mid-afternoon. Reviewing route charts in the library, suddenly everything was loud. His skin burned. He felt raw. He swore and stood, almost staggering. Maddox found him in the hallway. You're cycling. Jun's temper snapped. Say another word and you die. Maddox stepped closer, measured. Did you take medication this morning? Jun froze. No, he hadn't. Maddox led him, not to a bedroom, but a private room on the quietest floor, curtains drawn, cool air, tea already ready. You had someone fetch it. I had someone run. Jun swallowed the tablets, glaring. If you smirk, I bite. Maddox looked amused, distance maintained. Jun fumed, told Maddox to say something annoying so he could focus on hating him. Maddox replied, You're beautiful when you're furious. Jun stared. That's not annoying. That's sabotage. Maddox's answer came soft, steady. It's accurate. The room shrank. Heat curled in Jun's stomach. He stood abruptly. Maddox mirrored. Don't use instincts against me. Maddox paused, something gentle crossing his face. I haven't touched you without permission once. Jun faltered because it was true. All power, all obsession, never crossing that line. You could, Maddox stilled. Yes? Why haven't you? Because I want it to be your choice if you ever come to me. Jun forgot to breathe. Then, wild and reckless, said, You say horrifyingly attractive things at terrible times. Maddox laughed, low and warm. Jun ached to kiss him, horrified at himself, so he sat back down. Jun lingered in the sitting room long after the episode faded. Standing felt safer. Leaving meant admitting how badly he'd wanted comfort from Maddox. Not medicine, not privacy. Him. That truth burned under his skin. Maddox, annoyingly, gave him space, working silently on a laptop, answering messages, not crowding or leveraging his vulnerability. Would have been easier if Maddox had invaded. Jun almost wished he would. Instead, Jun watched Maddox's hands move over the keyboard, wondering what was broken inside him. Eventually, Jun said, You can stop pretending to work. Maddox replied, I am working. Jun rolled his eyes. You're babysitting. Maddox countered, I'm supervising a volatile situation. Jun hurled a cushion. Maddox caught it without even glancing. Show off. Accurate. Jun hated feeling warm in the chest at this banter. That night he ate with Maddox, not fighting every sentence. The staff noticed. Jun considered firing them all for their ridiculous obviousness. Soup arrived hotter, wine poured quicker, dessert suspiciously festive. Mrs. Delaney smiled at him, enough to unsettle. Jun threatened, If everyone keeps looking pleased, I'll poison the kitchen. Maddox was dry. They're relieved. You stopped acting like a kidnapped cat. I was never a cat. Maddox raised his glass. No. Cats require less paperwork. John laughed accidentally. Both of them froze, as if laughter was a secret they weren't supposed to share. The sound lingered. John stared at his plate. Eye contact suddenly felt dangerous. Rain came the next week, adding drama without volume. The estate darkened, ocean steel under clouds. Wind combed through cypress. John relished it. Storm weather made the house honest. He found Maddox in the greenhouse, sleeves rolled, hands deep in dirt. John paused. You garden? Maddox deadpanned. Assets need maintaining. John snorted. You're watering basil. Maddox shrugged. It remains valuable. John wandered in, breathing damp air. The greenhouse built into the cliff, sunlight diffused into warmth. Korean herbs, camellias, jasmine, the same kind June's mother grew. He eyed Maddox. When was this built? 2 years ago. Why? Maddox adjusted a lemon tree stake. You liked flowers in a school report. John blinked. You built a whole greenhouse because of that? Maddox kept it simple. I had space and poor judgment. John had no snappy reply, so he knelt beside Jasmine. You're insane, Maddox agreed, frequently. No one in June's life ever prepared for him without expectation. Lessons to be useful, clothes to showcase, schedules to boost marriage prospects. But this, someone remembered a child's favorite flower. It made his chest ache somewhere anger didn't reach. Naturally, Jun pointed out, the layout's inefficient. Maddox barked a laugh. There you are. They repotted seedlings. Jun was out of his element, Maddox annoyingly proficient. You're pressing too hard, Maddox said, hands covering Jun's, guiding him. Jun froze. Heat flared, chest close but not touching. Loosen up, Maddox murmured near his ear. Jun's pulse went wild. I know how to hold dirt. Maddox laughed. Jun tore free, put space between them. You crowd, Maddox shrugged. I instructed. You loomed. I'm tall. You weaponize it. Maddox watched him, amused. Jun burned with the urge to throw a pot at his head. Instead, he soaked a tray of seedlings out of spite, and Maddox watched him with something like pride. That night, June's dreams pulled him under again. Familiar touches at his waist, a mouth warm on his throat, the feeling of being pinned down, not by strength, but by trust. He woke up sweating and furious with himself, so much so that he stood under a cold shower long enough to doubt all of his life decisions. At breakfast, Maddox didn't say a single word, just looked at him over his coffee, and that one look was enough to say everything. Jun wanted to crawl into a hole. 2 days later, the real trouble returned. Not the kind you see in movies. No car chases or gunshots in dark alleys. Just information seeping in, slow and steady like a leak you can't quite find. Jun came into the office that afternoon and knew immediately something was off. The tension was almost physical. Screens were glowing, voices clipped, 3 lieutenants all on their feet, no easy smiles anywhere. Maddox barely glanced at him before clearing the room with one word. Out. They left fast, not a one looking back. Jun folded his arms, already bracing himself. What happened? Warehouse fire. Accident. No. Anybody hurt? One guard injured. That made Jun's stomach turn over. He straightened. Who? Maddox's face sharpened, eyes going colder, harder. Raphael Cruz. The name didn't register for Jun, but something in the room shifted. He felt it, sudden and electric, like the air before a storm. Is that supposed to mean something to me? It will. Maddox shifted, poured water from the sideboard, handed it to Jun without thinking. Jun took it the same way. Old habit. Cruz runs a Federation South, Maddox explained. Ports, drugs, labor routes, extortion. We've kept out of each other's business until now. And now? Now he's testing us. Jun sipped his water, feeling how cold it was, maybe icy enough to cut. Is this because of me? Maddox didn't answer, but he didn't have to. The silence bit down hard. So I'm leverage? You're a lot of things. Don't start with the poetry. Maddox finally met his eyes. He didn't blink. The truth is ugly. Yes, you're leverage. You're worth something alive, worth something in alliance. You're the kind of symbol people watch, and... He moved closer until Jun could smell rain and cordite. Apart from all that, you're mine to protect. Jun's breath stuttered. He managed. Still not yours. Maddox let his eyes drop to Jun's mouth for just a second too long. Give me a better word. The air changed. Everything electric, waiting. Then someone knocked, knuckles sharp against the door, and the moment shattered. Maddox closed his eyes. Jun stepped back, fast. I hate when people interrupt me, June muttered. You were leaving, Maddox said quietly. I might have stayed. Maddox only looked at him, long, slow, as if memorizing him. That's the cruelest thing you've said yet. Jun ran for it before his traitor smile broke loose. He managed a day away from the office, not from fear. Not because Maddox had stared him half undone the night before, not because he'd almost stayed. He had standards, he insisted, mostly to himself. Those standards lasted until about noon. By lunch, he was accidentally on the east side, and by 1 he was in the library not reading at all, watching security moving with new urgency. By 1:15, irritation won out over dignity, and he ended up marching into the operations wing. 6 men, a wall of maps, and Maddox at the head of the table. The room bristled. Jun took one look and said, Why does this place smell like bad decisions? 2 men tried to hide their laughter. Maddox's mouth twitched, betraying him just a little. We're in a meeting, Maddox said dryly. Obvious. Nobody looks happy. You're interrupting. You're welcome. He sat down, swiped water from the table. 1 lieutenant, mid-40s, scar across his chin. Suit that was more expensive than convincing, cleared his throat. This is sensitive material. Jun met his gaze, slow and sharp. Did I ask? The entire room stilled. The lieutenant, flustered, glanced at Maddox for permission. Maddox just said, Continue. Maddox just said, Continue. Everything shifted back to action, and Jun drank his water like he'd just conquered something. He learned quickly why the room was so tense. Cruz hadn't just lit up a warehouse. He'd started picking at supply lines. A seized shipment in San Diego, dock workers bribed in Long Beach, rumors spreading like slow poison, all little wounds meant to bleed them out, not kill them outright. So hit him back, Jun said. The room snapped to attention. The analyst blinked. The scarred lieutenant bristled. Maddox, unreadable as ever, folded his hands. How? Maddox asked. You're thinking muscle, Jun told him. The truth as plain as he could make it. Men always do first, but reputation is money. Make 'em expensive. Jun stood, pointed at the map. His network runs on fear. Every contractor, every small crew is scared not to obey. Don't shoot the soldiers. Attack their confidence. He moved his finger to 3 ports. Delay containers. Leak tax inquiries. Pay off inspectors. Manufacture labor slowdowns. Don't hit the man. Hit his reliability. Make everyone around him lose money. Blame him for the chaos. Let his people see weakness. The young analyst's face lit up. The scarred officer scowled. That takes time. Not as much as fixing a stupid mistake. The room was silent, a tense, living thing. Maddox didn't break eye contact. Implement a feasibility model, he said. Chairs scraped back. Orders snapped out. The room emptied quickly, but Maddox told Jun, "Stay." When everyone else was gone, the silence got heavy. Jun raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to lecture me?" "No." "Then why did you sound like you were about to?" Maddox stood from his chair, slow and deliberate. "I wanted privacy." He moved closer, close enough that Jun could feel the question hanging between them. "That sounds like a lecture preamble." "It isn't." Maddox was right there now, close enough to make Jun's chest tighten. "You were amazing," Maddox said. Jun shrugged. "I was obvious." "You were smart." I was annoyed. "You're usually annoyed." Jun just stared at him. Maddox's hand lifted, hesitated near his jaw. And when Jun didn't move away, Maddox's fingers traced a careful line along his face, soft, brief, enough to ruin the rest of the day. "You should be in every room," Maddox whispered. Jun couldn't muster a response. The door swung open and Mrs. Delaney bustled in with tea, surveyed the scene in a single glance, and quietly retreated. Jun jumped back. "I hate this house." For the next week, Maddox made sure Jun was everywhere. Real meetings, not the showy ones. Shipping reviews, legal fronts, numbers and logistics up to their necks. Maddox never introduced Jun as a pretty face or a piece of Alliance jewelry again. Sometimes he used fiancé. Sometimes just Jun. The difference mattered, much as Jun wished it didn't. At first, people underestimated him, saw only the omega, the political tie. Then Jun started asking real questions. Margins, insurance, vendor overlap. Why a restaurant chain's inventory made no sense at all. By the third meeting, nobody dared to look down on him. By the fifth, people brought extra notes just for him. Jun floated through it all, sharp, tuned, useful. There was something thrilling about it, a freedom he hadn't realized he'd missed. One night, he found Maddox in the study, pouring drinks. "You planned this," Jun accused. "Yes," Maddox said without pause. "You wanted me visible." "Yes." "So you manipulated me into being competent." "You were already competent." "That's almost smooth, almost." "I practiced." Maddox handed him a glass. Their eyes locked, and for a second, Jun nearly threw whiskey at his head just to break the tension. The first real touch happened more by accident than plan. At least that's how Jun later justified it. Late night, rain against the windows, staff in bed. Jun on the library floor, stubbornly untangling ledgers. Maddox came in with tea, ordered him to sleep. Jun grumbled. Somewhere, fingers caught over papers. Neither let go. Both waited. Maddox looked at him the way a man stares down gravity, full of risk and hope. "You're staring," Jun muttered. "Yes." "You do it all the time." "Yes." "You're shameless." "Yes," Maddox said, deadpan. Jun almost laughed. "Know any other words?" "Yes." "Use one." He didn't need to. The answer lingered, unspoken, but so close Jun could almost touch it. "Beautiful." Jun's next words were weak. "You're impossible." Maddox squeezed his hand, barely there. "Still here." 1 inch, just one. Jun leaned in. For once, he moved first. Maddox's eyes went dark, hungry, and right then sirens shredded the silence. Red lights flared. Alarms screamed. Both were up before the sound even finished. "Stay," Maddox ordered, all softness gone. "Absolutely not." Jun, try me. Gunfire echoed below. Maddox swore, pulled 2 pistols from a hidden shelf, handed one to Jun hard and fast. You're giving me a gun? Jun stared at him. I trust your aim. And then Maddox was kissing him, hard enough to leave June dazed, a promise and a challenge all at once. When he pulled away, he was pure command. Lock the door. He vanished into the chaos. Jun stood dazed for 3 full seconds, gun in hand. Taste of Maddox, still fire on his mouth. Rage burned brighter than fear. He kissed me in the middle of an attack. Psychopath. And then he moved. The library door locked like a vault, but June wasn't the type to cower. He slipped into the passage he'd scouted weeks earlier when nosiness had gotten the better of him. Old houses were honeycombed with escape routes. Armed, adrenaline spiking, Jun traced the back corridors, listening, weapon ready. Drilled habit took over. Check every corner. Don't move blind. Listen before stepping out. Maddox's training, damn him. He ended up on the 2nd floor gallery, looking down into chaos. Security wounded, attackers firing from cover, glass a dangerous glitter across marble. Maddox stood in the crossfire, barely touched, but moving like he was part of the violence itself, giving orders with those sharp, deliberate gestures. When one intruder raised a gun at Maddox, June didn't hesitate. Raised the pistol, steadied his hands, and shot. The crack echoed, clean hit to the attacker's arm. Gun clattering away. All heads jerked up toward him. Jun, wild-haired and furious, yelled, "Try aiming better." For half a second the room froze. Then someone started firing back. Stone exploded near his head. He ducked, shouted, "Rude!" and retreated just as guards rushed to collect him. The fight lasted 6 sharp, terrible minutes. Jun counted by the steady swing of the grandfather clock. He paced, weapon ready, imagining the worst. When footsteps finally came, he already had the gun up. Maddox first through the door, blood, wild-eyed, alive. Jun's anger broke the second relief hit. You kissed me and ran into gunfire. Yes. And left me with alarms and no clue what was going on. Yes. Told me to stay put like I'm a child. Yes. I shot someone. I know. You sound happy about it. I am. Jun almost snapped. Maddox closed the space between them, hands catching Jun's face fast, demanding, "Are you hurt? Did anyone touch you?" No. Good. Maddox kissed him again. This time, slower, all that bottled worry turned fierce and quiet. Jun clung to him, angry and grateful at once. When they finally broke apart, Jun's voice was shaky. You're still in trouble. I know. You're bleeding. Just a graze. You almost died. Maddox stroked his jaw, quiet. But I didn't. Jun hated the way his vision went blurry. He shoved Maddox into a chair and got the first aid kit. The wound was shallow, bloody, but not serious. Jun handled the patch-up with more irritation than necessary. Maddox watched him shamelessly. Stop staring. No. I have disinfectant in my hand. I'm not scared. Jun poured it anyway, not gentle, and Maddox hissed. Good, Jun said. You built this habit. Some lessons hurt. Yeah, I'm improving yours. Jun's hands worked fast, but he was shaking. Maddox noticed. Jun, I'm fine. You're shaking. It's anger. Yes. A thumb traced his wrist, annoying and comforting all at once. Jun swallowed. I thought... The words stopped in his throat. Maddox's voice was lower, gentler. I know. Jun wouldn't look at him. You don't get to die before I figure out how much I hate you. Understood, Maddox replied, quiet and so real. Laughter almost broke Jun, rough and unsteady. They ended up in the sitting room because security kept combing the house, and Jun refused to listen to static or another incident report. Rain kept hammering outside. Jun wrapped himself in a blanket he'd never requested. Tea showed up, as if the house itself refused to let him go uncomforted. Maddox settled next to him. For once, Jun closed the distance, leaning in until their shoulders touched. Maddox only relaxed after a full minute, his stillness melting. They sat there for a long time, not speaking, not needing to. Eventually, Jun found his voice. "Who sent them?" "We're still confirming." "Cruz?" "Probably. Because of me. Because of a lot of things." Jun turned his head. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Try to make the ugly truth less ugly." Maddox's voice was blunt. "Here's one plain. They came because hurting you would hurt me." That landed where it hurt, right in the chest. "And here's another," Maddox continued softly. "They were right." Rain kept whispering against the glass. Jun looked at him, a little amazed and a little lost. "You're terrible at romance, you know that?" "I wasn't trained for it." "You got training in kidnapping and tax fraud instead." Maddox's mouth tipped into a half-smile. "Among other disciplines." For the first time that night, Jun smiled for real. Maddox watched it creep up, helpless. Finally, he reached for Jun's hand, this time not letting go, and Jun didn't pull away. They sat like that together, while the world beat against the windows and settled, for a moment on something almost safe. The morning after the attack, the estate was chaos. Everybody was running around, damage assessments, updating security rosters, new facial recognition scans, 3 extra armored cars parked outside like a warning. Jun came down the staircase, clutching a mug of coffee in Maddox's hand, and instantly the atmosphere shifted. Conversation stopped. Staff froze mid-stride. A guard almost dropped his tablet. Mrs. Delaney stared at their joined hands, then at Jun's face, then Maddox's. "About time," she said, and Jun almost spat out his coffee. Maddox looked annoyingly pleased with himself. Jun jerked his hand back like a reflex. "This means nothing," he declared. "Of course," Maddox replied, but at breakfast, his hand found Jun's under the table again, and Jun let him have it, hidden beneath linen, or so Jun thought. Honestly, everyone could see. By noon, the whole estate knew. By evening, it felt like half the West Coast did, though no one dared bring it up directly, which was just awkward. Staff began acting weirdly attentive. Jun's tea arrived exactly how he liked it, no questions. Fresh flowers appeared in his rooms. Security guards stopped scowling when he wandered into restricted areas. They just opened doors for him like he was royalty. At lunch, some kitchen guy asked, "Would Sir prefer the usual?" Jun glared. "Which Sir?" The kid nearly fainted. I meant either." Jun pointed a chopstick at him. "Good answer." 3 seats over, Maddox was visibly amused. Hand-holding became a constant, no matter how hard Jun tried to discourage it. Maddox just kept reaching for him in hallways, cars, on terraces, even while Jun was deep in paperwork and ignoring him. Jun meant to pull away every time. Every time somehow he didn't. Sometimes he rationalized it. Appear united, project strength, discourage gossip. Sometimes, if he was honest, it was because Maddox's hands were warm and steady. They made his restless nerves go quiet, and Jun would rather pretend it was strategic. 3 nights after the attack, Jun woke around 2 a.m., no alarm. Just that instinctive sense that the world had tilted somehow. The estate felt empty, not unsafe, just hollow. He pulled on a robe and went searching. He found Maddox in the greenhouse, barefoot, shirt sleeves rolled up, surrounded by sleeping plants, clutching a tumbler of untouched whiskey. Jun paused at the door. "Brooding among the shrubbery now?" Maddox turned. I'm branching out, Jun groaned. That was awful. Maddox just shrugged. I'm injured. Jun rolled his eyes. You're manipulative. He crossed the room, took the glass, sniffed it, set it aside. You only drink when you celebrate or lie to yourself about relaxing. Maddox admitted. True. He smiled faintly. Sometimes the glass is just for the mystery. Jun told him he'd failed at that, then stood beside him, staring out at the black waves beyond the glass. Silence settled for a while, but Jun had questions. Why are you awake? He expected Maddox to deflect, but instead Maddox said quietly, because if they'd gotten to you first, he didn't finish, didn't need to. Jun turned, saw Maddox in the moonlight, a man famous for steel nerves, yet shaken because of him. Jun felt something twist in his chest. They didn't, he said. No. I shot one. You did. I was excellent. You were terrifying. Jun pressed his hip to Maddox's. You liked it. Maddox nodded. Yes. Then softer. I don't know what to do with fear that isn't for myself. Jun took that in. No grand speech, no romantic flourish, just a hard truth. So Jun answered with his own. I don't know what to do with being wanted for more than usefulness. Maddox looked at him, really looked, and suddenly everything felt different again. Maddox lifted a hand, paused. Jun closed the gap before doubt could get in the way, Maddox's palm cupping his neck, thumb tracing his jaw, warm and possessive, only because Jun allowed it. They kissed, slow, patient, mouths learning for once. Jun's hands found Maddox's shirt without conscious thought. Maddox's free hand settled gently on his waist. When they parted, Jun's lips tingled. You taste expensive, he muttered. Maddox smirked. You taste like threats. Unsurprising. They kissed again, and after that boundaries blurred more, not completely, but enough. Jun kept his own suite, mostly. Maddox respected the door, usually. Arguments happened daily, naturally. But now there were touches in corridors, a hand at Jun's lower back guiding him, Jun straightening Maddox's tie before meetings, Maddox kissing Jun's wrist while reading contracts, Jun perched on Maddox's desk, not moving when Maddox's hands rested against his thighs. The household became intolerably smug. Mrs. Delaney started humming love songs. Jun considered arson. Then Busan called. Jun's grandfather demanded a secure video conference, a command, not a request. Jun took it in the private study with Maddox there, wordlessly agreed. Chairman Han appeared on screen, older than Jun remembered, but still sharp. My grandson, he intoned. Grandfather. Han's gaze shifted to Maddox, standing behind Jun. Blackwell. Chairman. Two men locking horns through etiquette. Han folded his hands. I hear there was an incident, Maddox replied. Handled. Han ignored him. I was asking Jun. Jun smiled, thin and cold. Maybe ask me first, then. Han allowed a ghost of approval before continuing. There are concerns. The alliance must look stable. Some question the delay in ceremony. Jun's posture stiffened. Even now, business, terms, appearances. Jun said, I'm not cargo waiting on paperwork. Han returned. You are family, Jun answered. Those are not the same. Han expertly ignored him. Maddox, I expect progress. Maddox's voice went arctic. You'll get updates when I decide. The room chilled. Two men used to command, crashing against each other for the first time. Han's eyes narrowed. You forget who honored your house, Maddox replied. No. I remember exactly who traded a child. Silence detonated. Jun forgot to breathe. Han's face hardened. The call ended abruptly. No goodbyes. Jun stood slowly. You said that to him. Maddox didn't blink. Yes. Why? Maddox was almost annoyed by the question. Because it's true. The word stung. No one in June's family had ever named it so directly. Not to Power, not for him. He forgot his caution, crossed the room and grabbed Maddox's shirt, then kissed him hard enough to hurt. When they broke apart, Maddox looked stunned, rare for him. Jun smiled, shaky. Don't think this is a reward. I'll become insufferable. Already are. But June reached for him anyway. Peace lasted barely 4 days. The estate settled into something dangerously close to domestic. Maddox worked late, but still made breakfast. Jun terrorized mediocre executives. They argued about basil and water, kissed in corridors both when watched and unwatched. Jun learned Maddox slept on his side, read financial crimes like bedtime stories, and had a scar high on his thigh that froze him if touched. Maddox learned Jun stole blankets, talked in his sleep in Korean, and had a 10-minute window of sweetness after waking before reverting to his prickly self. Jun pretended to hate it, but really he loved it, which meant disaster was inevitable. It arrived one morning, a black box on the breakfast table between coffee and fruit. No card, no delivery staff. All the guards in the room stiff, alert. Jun put down his cup. What's that? Maddox was already on his feet. Don't touch it. Jun, with perverse patience, waited while security ran through their protocol. Inside, white roses, fresh, beautiful. One strip of bloodied silk around the stems. Jun recognized the pattern immediately. Han family ceremonial fabric. His face went cold. Maddox snatched the note before Jun could. Read it, jaw tight. Jun demanded, give it. Maddox hesitated, then passed it over. 3 words, neat and Spanish. Return what's owed. June's eyes lifted slowly. Cruise. Maddox nodded. He has Busan fabric. Jun felt something ugly churn in his gut. Or someone in Busan sent it. Maddox wouldn't answer, which was answer enough. The estate switched into machine mode. Phones, orders, names, movements. Jun hated all of it, especially that no one bothered to ask what he wanted. By noon, he was back in the operations room, uninvited. Tell me, he demanded. Maddox didn't look up. No. Jun shut the laptop. Heads turned. I am not a decorative hostage, Jun snapped. You're angry. You're evasive. I'm working. You're deciding around me. Maddox stood, the room emptied on cue. Alone, he said. I'm deciding around danger. June's jaw clenched. I grew up in danger. Maddox shot back. You grew up managed. That was true, and it hurt. Jun's eyes flashed. And now? Now you're with me. Meaning? Meaning I won't use you as bait. Jun stared. That had been exactly his thought. Use the threat, leak a movement, draw crews, solve it. Cold logic inherited from cruel men. Maddox had read him instantly. You think I'd suggest that? Yes? June hated admitting it. Maddox's tone softened. And I think it because they trained you to treat yourself as collateral. That landed deeper than any insult. Jun stood very still. Maddox stepped closer. I won't, June swallowed. Won't what? Spend you. Jun's vision blurred for a second. He hid it behind anger. You keep saying horrible things romantically. Maddox grinned. I'm versatile. Jun laughed despite himself, then hated that too. Sleep wouldn't come that night. Jun slipped barefoot through the halls and ended up in the gym, beating the heavy bag until his arms burned. He hit harder as memories of Busan came back. His grandfather's hands guiding him, his father's indifference, doctors discussing fertility like stock prices. Hit, hit, hit. The light snapped on. Maddox walked in, sweatpants and no shirt, hair messy from sleep. Jun's pulse stuttered. Go away. No, I'm processing. You're concussing leather. Jun hit the bag again. Maddox walked over, took the gloves off, cupped Jun's face. "You are not owed." Jun froze. "You are not debt." Maddox's forehead rested against Jun's. "You are not ceremonial fabric or a bargaining chip." Jun's throat hurt. Maddox pressed closer. "You are a man I love." The world paused. No music, no thunder, no dramatic timing, just the gym lights, the scent of sweat and rubber, and one impossibly direct sentence. Jun blinked, then managed, "You're terrible at romance." Maddox laughed, low and warm. Consistently sighted, Jun grabbed his waist, kissed him hard, making up for all the words he'd never been given. When Maddox pulled back, searching his face, Jun looked away, then back. "I don't know how to do this right. Neither do I. I'm angry a lot. I know. I panic when I'm happy. I know. I'll insult you right after emotional moments. I'm counting on it." Jun's eyes burned, and he hated that, so he just ripped the words out, "I love you too." Maddox went rigid with shock. Jun scowled. "Why do you look stunned?" "I just said it like a hostage negotiator. You've called me a parasite 3 times this week because you were acting like one." Maddox kissed him, relief and heat mixing together. Words seemed unnecessary after that. They didn't leave the gym, not right away. Maddox pressed Jun carefully against the padded wall, kissing him slow and deep, Jun dragging him closer by the hips. Everything sharpened. Heat, touch, breath. Jun had imagined this often enough to be annoyed, but reality was so much better. Maddox restraining his strength, deliberate. "Still your choice," Maddox murmured. Jun bit his lip. Still yes." That almost broke Maddox's composure. Clothes became more tangled than removed, a mess of limbs and fabric and permission. Maddox checked in before every new thing, his voice rough with restraint. Jun said yes, again and again, feeling powerful. Maddox slid to his knees, hands tracing Jun's thighs, pressing his face to Jun's stomach, savoring the warmth. Jun's fingers tangled in Maddox's hair. The air felt electric. Maddox looked up, eyes dark, voice low. "Can I taste you here?" He pressed his lips to Jun's navel, mouth soft and hungry. "Yes," Jun whispered, and the word made his whole body hum. Maddox pulled Jun's shirt upward, slow and careful, revealing pale skin inch by inch. Jun shivered, not from cold, but from the way Maddox's touch lingered, eyes mapping every new patch of skin. His hands were everywhere, thumbs tracing over Jun's hips and ribs, unhurried, exploring. It felt like Maddox was learning Jun's body, permission granted for each touch. Jun responded in kind, fingers gliding over Maddox's broad shoulders, pushing his shirt up, Maddox raising his arms so it could slide off, leaving them bare and pressed together, chest to chest. Maddox rose up, warmth meeting warmth, kissing Jun again, slower, tongues teasing. Maddox's hands trailed down Jun's back, nails scratching lightly. Jun gasped and nipped back, tasting sweat, feeling the world shrink to their heat. Maddox lowered again, kneeling, mouth tracing open-mouth kisses along Jun's belly, tongue flicking lower. Jun's breath shuddered, his grip anchoring him, Maddox's restraint visible, each movement measured, careful, intense. His hands toyed with Jun's shorts, fingers teasing the elastic. "Can I move these?" Maddox's eyes caught Jun's, dark and sincere. "Yes," Jun said, voice steady, wild inside. Power surged through his veins. Maddox slid his fingers beneath the waistband, not rushing, easing shorts down bit by bit, palms following the line of Jun's thighs. Cool air kissed new skin, muscles tense. Maddox's breath was hot, promise lingering, but he held back. "Tell me if it's too much," Maddox murmured, steady as always. "It's not," Jun replied and pushed his hips forward. Maddox's hands gripped his hips, steadying him. Maddox leaned in, mouth soft and gentle at first, lips pressing into the skin above and then further down. Jun's head fell back, gasps escaping as Maddox built a rhythm, a masterclass in anticipation, drawing out sound after sound. Maddox's tongue traced lazy lines, hands kneading Jun's thighs, thumbs pressing, deepening pleasure. Time blurred, lights casting shadows on sweat-slick skin. Jun's universe shrank to Maddox's mouth, Maddox's eyes checking in, voice muffled but teasing. Like this? Jun nodded, breathless, stronger than ever. Much later, flushed and trembling, June somehow ended up being carried upstairs, even though he protested, "This is ridiculous." Maddox just said, "You can walk tomorrow." Jun fired back, "I hate you." "No," Maddox replied. So June kissed him again, because accuracy matters and because finally June had figured out what he wanted. Jun woke wrapped around Maddox like he'd been caught in a lie. Sunrise slipped through the curtains, and for a moment Jun froze, staring at their tangled legs, at Maddox's steady breathing. His brain spun in circles, looking for the exit, but before panic could set in, Maddox's arm clamped down, dead weight, heavy. "Cowardice doesn't suit you," Maddox muttered, not even bothering to open his eyes. "I wasn't leaving," Jun lied, scowling. Maddox just smirked. "You fake sleep like a villain. And you drool. Do not. You absolutely do." Jun buried his annoyed grin in Maddox's shoulder, stubborn but too tired to argue further. The world felt soft around the edges for a split second, until reality came at them like a freight train. The phone on the nightstand shrilled. Maddox reached without even shifting, answered in curt syllables, voice deep and smooth, till it sharpened all at once. "What happened?" Jun sat up, senses pinging because Maddox's body language never lied. Every ounce of comfort vanished. Now his posture was all edge, his words clipped. "Seal the gates. No one leaves." He hung up. An icy weight dropped into June's stomach. "What?" Maddox turned. The look he wore would make devils reconsider. "There's been a hit in Busan." Time seemed to pause. The air thinned. Jun's mind spun. "Who?" Maddox hesitated for half a beat, then reached for him as if instinct would win over disaster. "Your father." The words crashed into June, hard and senseless. His father was everything infuriating, remote, cold, indestructible, the man who made suffering an art form, the man who didn't get hit. He arranged them. He sifted through the worst parts of the world and always, always survived. "No," Jun muttered. Reflex took over, yanking pants on, tripping over his own hands. Maddox was already in motion, dressing by muscle memory. "Jun!" "No!" Jun snapped. His voice turned jagged, rage fighting panic. "My father doesn't get hit. He..." Jun's inner monologue twisted on itself, cowardly, distant, but always alive. Except now, maybe not. Before he reached the hall, Maddox caught him, not stopping, anchoring. "Look at me." Jun yanked against his grip, but Maddox held with that stubborn, unyielding steadiness that always broke through the haze. "Is he dead?" Jun demanded. "No." That fast, that sharp. The world surged back with a desperate rush of air. "In surgery. 2 shots, shoulder and gut. Stable enough to move if we have to," Maddox rattled off. It was equal parts tactical brief and lifeline. Jun went lightheaded. Maddox's hand slid to his waist, keeping Jun upright. He hated needing this, hated it, and leaned in anyway. "Who did it?" Maddox shook his head. "Not clear." He ticked possibilities off like targets. Crews, rivals, even Jun's grandfather. Jun threw out the names as fast as he could find them. Maddox's eyes sharpened, slicing through the possibilities. No. Your grandfather gains nothing from chaos. This shatters your house, opens the gates. Jun barked a brittle laugh. You think my family's scared of chaos? Maddox didn't answer, and that said enough, maybe more. Jun spun, restless, the need to do something devouring him. I'm going home, he said. Yes? Maddox didn't even argue, just started arranging for a plane. That shook Jun more than resistance would have. The entire machinery of crisis roared to life. 2 hours blurred by, cars pulling up, documents shuffled and stamped, medical contacts briefed at a run, security doubled, split, and doubled again. Jun changed outfits twice because his hands wouldn't steady themselves. Mrs. Delaney tried shoving breakfast at him, but food was useless now. Coffee got abandoned on a table. He became a ghost, moving on rails. Maddox was everywhere, in 3 languages, pausing only long enough to squeeze Jun's shoulder or take over when Jun froze mid-motion. One task at a time, Maddox murmured, fastening Jun's shirt cuffs because Jun couldn't. Jun nodded, jaw set and silent. Noon. They were airborne, California shrinking to a memory under the jet's wing. Jun gripped his seat, knuckles white. Maddox started across from him, but then, after a minute, moved to sit close. Jun didn't ask him to go back. Clouds outside, war inside. Jun turned the facts over and over. He both loved and hated his father. He'd wanted approval for years, chased after it like a dog, and received only duty in return. He'd dreamed of fighting the old man, of making him admit to every scar. He'd never imagined burying him. The ground beneath Jun felt shaky and full of fault lines. Maddox pressed a glass of water into Jun's hands. Drink. He did. Quietly, Jun confessed. When I was a kid, I'd wait by the gate for him to come home. 6, maybe 7. Figured if I greeted him first, he'd be pleased. Jun looked at nothing. Sometimes I'd get a pat on the head. He laughed. Hollow, old pain. I kept trying. Maddox slid a hand over him. Not to comfort, just to know. He didn't say anything about good intentions or misunderstood men. That made everything tighter and more real. Rain hit Busan as they landed. The Han compound loomed over gray water, looking ancient and ready for siege. Cars jammed the drive, full of family, hungry for power, worried, or both. Jun ignored every glance. Maddox's presence at his shoulder reordered the room, a shadow with teeth. Jun powered through the halls, past kin he'd ignored for years, and straight into the section-turned hospital. His mother waited outside the surgery, barefoot and shaken, stained with blood. When she saw Jun, she folded, and he caught her. For a while, nothing mattered except holding on. Behind her, Maddox already set guards, claiming the ground Jun didn't know how to defend. Then the ghosts of old wars arrived, his grandfather, cold, and returned to center stage. A room full of relatives watched Han and Jun circle each other, bristling with unfinished business. You took your time, Han said. Jun gave him back every ounce of scalding honesty he never could as a child. Both of them locked in the old war, old wounds unhealed. The surgical update finally came. He lives, said the doctor. Relief hurt more than fear. The next day would be hell. Jun waited outside with his mother, saw Maddox run the compound like a hostile takeover, replacing security, questioning doctors. The house shifted, carved into territory overnight. Blackwell men and Han men kept pretending not to eye each other like dogs over a bone. At 3 a.m, Maddox found Jun outside, awake in the damp garden. You should sleep. You should stop stating facts. They stood silently. Jun leaned against stone that remembered every childhood secret he'd buried here. I don't know what I feel, Jun confessed. Normal. No, it's ugly, the confession burned. If he dies, I lose a father I spent half my life resenting. If he survives, I have to face him, and nothing simple. You don't owe clean grief, Maddox murmured. That simple sentence nearly undid Jun. He laid out the oldest ache inside, just wanting to be chosen, always losing to business, to image, to legacy. Maddox confessed his own inheritance, not of love, but of steel. My grandfather loved with survival, not softness. It still left marks. Honest, no pity. Jun looked away because wisdom had never been his favorite flavor. Morning brought rumors, cousins squabbling over who'd done it, uncles eyeing the throne, family politics swirling around a house supposed to be unbreakable. Jun almost punched one uncle. Maddox, perfectly calm, suggested waiting for a bigger audience, which was alarmingly practical. Council was called. Jun was supposed to ask permission to attend, but he stopped doing that years ago. The meeting became its own battlefield. Elders grumbling about Maddox's presence, Jun stabbing holes in every easy theory about the attack. He laid out hard evidence. Internal help was certain, outside enemy possible, timing too precise. His grandfather gave him unexpected trust. You will lead the review. Jun could barely comprehend the shift, the offer that had always been withheld. He threw it back. Too late, too little, and devastating all the same. He stormed out, emotions raw. The old koi garden called him back, his childhood haven, moss, stone, water, black as secrets. He broke down there, anger and grief fighting for air while Maddox waited beside him, unfazed, steady. Jun swore vengeance if Maddox ever mentioned tears. Maddox promised to die happy, but nothing stays private for long here. Across the water, movement, a watcher who bolted the moment Jun spotted him. Maddox took off like he'd been shot from a gun. Jun stumbled after him. The paths, beautifully treacherous, were decidedly not built for chasing traitors on wet stones. Maddox practically flew. Jun barely survived. The chase ended in a collision, Maddox pinning a terrified junior clerk, Minho. Under questioning and the threat of bodily harm, Minho spilled everything. He'd been paid by an intermediary to report on Han's movements, an older woman with a tiger ring. Jun's heart sank. That pointed to Aunt Seo-yeon, his father's older sister, the family's perennial chess master. They confronted her, but Seo-yeon wore guilt like perfume and swatted danger away with impeccable manners. She readily admitted to watching everyone, but denied the shooting. Her reasoning was cold. She wanted her brother to lose by tradition, not violence. Jun believed her, or at least believed she wasn't stupid enough to invite crews to play for blood. But someone else had, and the conspiracy thickened. Back in the corridors, Jun asked for a drink. Maddox, ever practical, said it was noon. Jun decided he needed two. They traded dry sarcasm, brief touches, and one stolen kiss hidden in the ancestral halls. Maddox promised nothing, offered steady ground, and followed Jun into the next fire, come what may. Jun hated that it helped, and could not help but reach for it over and over as the family he'd never trusted became battleground and home all at once. They barely made it to the old records wing when the alarms went off again. This place felt different from California, not just in the way it looked, but in the way the panic tasted in the air. Thicker, older, echoing with 1,000 unresolved grudges. The compound rang with bell tones, doors slamming, staff yelling, people scattered in every direction, shoes pounding the floors. A guard careened around the corner, his chest heaving, half bowing as he tried to get a sentence out. Chairman Hand's room, powers out, security cameras down. Jun and Maddox didn't need a plan. Instinct snapped their bodies into motion. They bolted straight for the medical wing. By the time they reached it, harsh emergency lights strobed the halls in garish red. Han's personal guards were on the ground, not dead, just unresponsive, sprawled there like puppets with their strings cut. Someone had dosed them. The recovery room stood open. Jun's mother was in the corridor, shell-shocked but wild, clutching a shattered vase as if she'd ripped life itself off a side table for defense. Her hair hung loose, breath coming fast. At her feet, a man in nurse scrubs lay sprawled and unconscious, blood trailing from his nose. Jun's mother, hands trembling but eyes steady, lifted her chin and met June's stare. "They sent a second one," she said, crisp as bone china. Jun's brain short-circuited. Laughter burst out of him, raw and incredulous. Maddox, all business, stepped over the guy and checked the room. "Chairman?" From inside, the old man's mountain of ego voice rumbled. "I am not dead, incompetent fools." Jun's mother just exhaled, holding her ground. "I hit him twice," was her only comment. Jun rushed to check her over, hands gentle but frantic. "You're bleeding." She shrugged, glancing at the red stain. His nose. Her tone was pure pride, refusing to let an enemy's blood on her sleeve become a weakness. Jun looked at her, at the attacker, then back. "I have underestimated you my entire life." She patted his cheek, lips twitching at the corners. "Yes." Of course she refused medical attention. Nurses hovered, but she waved them off. "It's just a scrape," she insisted, one sleeve still painted with someone else's blood. He had poor balance. Jun rolled his eyes. He had a concussion. He should have picked steadier footing. No apology, just a steely glint of satisfaction. Even Maddox looked impressed. Inside, Chairman Han was upright in bed, offended at the mere suggestion that he'd needed rescuing. "You all took your time," he snapped. Jun entered first. "You were almost murdered." "I was interrupted." "Those are not the same thing." Chairman Han just flicked his gaze toward Maddox. "Your security is disappointing." Maddox didn't miss a beat. "Apologies, but I usually wait until after breakfast to lock down your house." Jun bit back a smile. His grandfather didn't. That was just fine. The fake nurse got his turn. They dragged him to an interrogation room deep under the compound. Nothing modern about it, just a table, 2 chairs, and that gritty, old country dampness that made secrets feel heavy. Maddox tried to make June hang back. "You're tired." Jun didn't slow. "I'm furious." "Fury isn't restorative." "It is for me." He walked straight in, breathing out tension. The attacker sat there, zip-tied, nose bandaged, face already swelling. Powerless, but still trying for menace. Jun pulled out a chair, scraping it back just so, and sat. Maddox stayed near the door. The attacker took one look, spat blood toward the floor, and, God, he laughed. "Pretty boy came to watch?" Jun stared, unimpressed. "See, comments like that are why people hit you." He folded his hands, refusing to flinch. "You were dressed as a nurse. That's humiliating enough without adding poor manners." The man eyed Maddox. "You Blackwell?" Maddox nodded, cool as Arctic air. "Yes." "Cruz says hello." Something sharp ran through Jun's spine. Maddox just met the moment, unbothered. He's not creative. "Return the Omega and he'll stop cutting," the man slurred, smiling like a shark missing half its teeth. Jun didn't blink. "And what do you say?" The man's response came cold, unfiltered. "That you're worth cities." Whatever tension had knotted Jun snapped. He stood up so viciously the chair shrieked across the floor, then cracked his fist into the man's face. Little satisfaction, a lot of pain, but it didn't matter. Air hung heavy after, silent and dense. Worth cities, June echoed. I'm sick of being measured like cargo. Maddox's hand wrapped around June's, solid and grounding. We're done here, he said quietly, even as the attacker coughed blood and sneered. You hit like royalty. June glared one last time. You should meet my mother. Out in the hall, Maddox checked June's hand, rolling his eyes even as he was gentle. It's swelling. He had a punchable face. You're dramatic. I'm right. Maddox pressed his fingers over June's knuckles, the wrong combination of tender and thorough. June hissed with pain. You're doing that on purpose? Absolutely. You admit too much. Maddox, unbothered, lifted June's hand and pressed a quick kiss to his palm. Suddenly, this sterile hallway seemed private, almost intimate. We're underground in a criminal compound, June pointed out, glancing sharply at every corner. There are cameras, Maddox replied, and June snatched his hand back. You menace! You like me. That's under review. Appeal denied. It was mid-afternoon before the Han compound settled. Every door was checked, every call monitored. The family grumbled and bristled, but somehow that meant things were finally secure. Jun lost himself in paperwork with 3 analysts, building timelines, marking debts, tracing motives. He was vicious with a pen, hacking patterns out of chaos, circling names of those who owed, those who shifted schedules, those who suddenly sent money home. Maddox lounged in the doorway, observing. You enjoy puzzles, Maddox said. I enjoy exposing lazy traitors, Jun said flatly. Same thing. Jun pointed with his pen. These 2 loaded up on debt last month. This one's sister's tuition got paid out of nowhere, and he swapped shifts to get closer to the medical wing. Maddox leaned in, too close. Bring him in quietly. Jun grinned despite himself. See, we're a team. Terrifying, Maddox agreed, wry. The last suspicion was a tech named Deho. They didn't need violence. Jun just knew which pressure points to touch while Maddox made threats by simply looking preoccupied with murder. Deho broke in minutes, blabbing names, payouts, schedules. The money tracked back through so many shell companies, but one name finally surfaced. Uncle Jisung. Jun's blood went cold at that. No, he's lazy. Maddox glanced up. Greed wakes up the lazy. Deho whispered. They wanted pressure, not blood. Make Chairman Hands step down. A coup, dressed up as hired thugs. Family strategy, old as dirt and twice as sordid. Jun's chest hurt. Where's my uncle now? Gone, Deho said. Of course. That night, Chairman Han convened the entire clan. The main hall filled up with silk, cologne, and a parade of fake concern. Guards circled the walls. Jun kept to the side, Maddox at his shoulder, both of them black-clad and bristling. Han entered at a limping, deliberate pace, cane clicking more for effect than need. He pointed it straight at his relatives. One of you tried to bury me before I was dead. No one dared breathe. One of you fed scavengers into my house. Thick tension. Half the aunts blinked too fast. Uncles stared at the floor. Jun found Jisung in the crowd, sweating through his perfect hair. Han didn't hesitate. Jisung. Jisung barely managed to smile. Yes, elder brother. Smile vanished. He darted toward a side door. Maddox moved, a whisper, a shadow, then collision. Jisung collapsed to the wood, gasping for air. The room erupted. People wailed. Accusations flew. Someone's wig almost came off in the scuffle. Amid the chaos, Aunt Seoyeon, drama queen, secret bruiser, pegged Jisung in the head with a ledger. Coward, she said flatly. Jun laughed, helpless. Maddox threw a look back at him, a silent, soft assurance in the midst of the uproar. Finally, when the hall cleared and Jisung was led away in chains, Han sat alone for a moment. Jun edged closer. The old man seemed suddenly shrunken, years weighing on his shoulders. "You solved it," Han said. "We did," Jun replied, flicking his gaze toward Maddox. Han's acknowledgement was a grumble, but it meant something. Jun braced himself. "Don't get sentimental. I'll leave." "I am considering many things," Han said. "You were wasted being traded." The words snagged Jun's heart, unwelcome, old pain flaring. "You made that choice." "Yes." Han's concession bled regret for a second, bare and unproud. The old man studied Maddox, then Jun. "Don't waste what I did," Jun bristled. "I'm not an heirloom." Maddox moved forward, cool but careful. "I know. He's his own and no one else's." Jun's fingers shook. Han studied them both, then dismissed them with the flick of a hand, but it felt more like permission than indifference. They left together, Maddox's hand firm around Jun's. Jun heard Han mutter to the empty room. About time someone figured it out. Jun didn't bother with his old room that night. He visited just to see if anything had changed. Same books, same evidence of parental plans and polished pride, papers and trophies from a life someone else tried to script. He felt nothing. Or maybe too much. He shut the door and crossed to Maddox's guest wing. Maddox answered the knock before it came. "You pace when you brood." "I glide," Jun protested. "You storm." Jun pushed past him, dumped his body on the bed, fully clothed. "Your mattress is terrible." "Leave if you don't like it." "Nope. I'm annexing territory." If he sprawled wide enough, maybe he could make it feel like belonging. Maddox just peeled off his watch, unwinding, sleeves rolled up, every movement precise and unnecessary. "You're a pest." "Yes." He grabbed Jun's ankle and pulled, sending him into a fit of undignified laughter. It didn't take much for laughter to fade to silence, to warmth, as Maddox held him just right. "Sleep," Maddox murmured. "You first." "I caught a nap during the confession." "Liar." Strategic napping. Jun fixed Maddox's collar, hands lingering. "Stay," he whispered. Not a command, just hope, tiny and raw. "I'm here," Maddox promised. The certainty in those words left Jun reeling. Morning arrived with rain slapping the windows and the latest drama oozing down the family grapevine. Uncle Jisung sang all night. A parade of accusations spilled out, names and bribes and debts revealed. Guards vanished. Accountants scurried. Someone left the compound with only a potted plant. Jun ate congee for breakfast and watched power shuffle from one group to another. "This place is exhausting," he muttered. Maddox sipped his coffee. "You sound like you love it." "I'm trapped, not attached." His mother breezed in, kissed his head like old habits never die, and sat down. Maddox, for once, froze at domesticity. Jun tried to look casual. She winked at Maddox. "You should marry him quickly," she said, spooning rice into a porcelain bowl. "You already share rooms. At least get insurance." Jun nearly choked. Maddox hid his laugh behind a hand. "Mother," Jun squawked. She looked pleased with herself. "I'm just adapting. Hard times call for creative survival." Finally, she glanced at Maddox. "He's a handful. Sure you can manage?" Maddox didn't hesitate. "Not at all, but I admire him." Jun groaned and tried to disappear into his breakfast, but nothing could fully hide the smile that refused to quit. By the time the afternoon rolled around, June's father finally woke up. The news didn't crash in, no wild alarms, nobody running down the halls, just a nurse quietly showing up and saying he asked for his son. That was enough to freeze June right there in the corridor. Instantly, all the anger he'd tried to bury from being a kid came back fast and harsh. And so did that old yearning, even though he wished it wouldn't. Maddox stood next to him, quietly steady as ever. "You don't have to go immediately," he said, which made June laugh, sort of brittle. "He asked for me once in 20 years, and suddenly I need boundaries." He shot Maddox a look. "That's not what I said," Maddox replied, calm. "It's what I heard," June muttered. Maddox touched June's neck just once, grounding him again. It worked, annoyingly well. June hated that, but still, he told him, "Come if I ask." Maddox nodded. "Always." June drew a deep breath and walked in alone. His father looked small, shrunken by all the machines, the bandages. Authority evaporates fast when you're stuck horizontal with tubes and pale skin. Yet the moment his father's eyes opened and found him, June felt himself shrink too, suddenly 10 again. "You came back," his father rasped. June answered, "You got shot." His father managed a tiny smile. "A dramatic tactic," June snorted. "You would know." He stood near the foot of the bed, with the distance between them measured out in years. His father studied him, squinting a little. "You look different," he said. June stared back. "I left." "That helps," his father agreed. June folded his arms. "Why did you ask for me?" The silence stretched long enough to feel like another wound. Then his father finally said, "Because I woke and realized if I died, you would think I never loved you." Almost nothing makes June cry, but that did. He hated how his vision blurred, hated that nothing else filled the quiet afterward. Finally he spoke, voice low. "You were never there." His father shook his head. "I was always there." June's anger swelled. "No, you were in meetings, at ports, at dinners, always looking past me." His father closed his eyes briefly, pain flickering through him. "When your test came back Omega, I knew what my father would do," he said. June's heart hammered. "I tried to stop it," his father whispered, and the words smashed something old inside June. "You did nothing," June said, nearly shaking. "I lost," the man replied, broken. The certainty June had always seen carved into his father was gone, replaced by loss. "I was heir then, not head. Every day my father showed me the cost of disobedience." His father's breath caught. "I thought if I stayed close to power, I could protect you later," June spat out. "You stayed far from me." "Yes." That honesty hit worse than any excuse. June's tears burned humiliatingly hot, and for a moment he moved beside the bed automatically, not understanding how he got there. Up close, his father looked different, older, human. "I waited for you at the gate," June said quietly. Tears started in his father's eyes. "I know," he replied, voice choking. June pressed on. "I saw from the upstairs window." The defenses June had built started feeling shaky. "Why didn't you come down?" His father's face twisted with shame. "Because every time I wanted to choose you, I heard my own father's voice first." June sat abruptly because his legs couldn't hold him up anymore. They didn't talk for a long time. Then finally his father whispered, "I am sorry I loved you weakly." And that broke June completely. He grabbed his father's hand and bowed his head, crying, while machines measured everything he couldn't. When June stepped back into the corridor, eyes red and uneven breath, Maddox was right where he promised, leaning against the wall, waiting. He straightened instantly, Jun closed the space and pressed his face into Maddox's chest. No speech, just refuge. Maddox wrapped him up and held him, steady. After a while, Jun muttered, muffled into fabric, "If you say anything wise, I'll bite you." Maddox just replied, "I brought tea." Jun reached for it, half blind. "That's acceptable." The cup appeared, like Maddox summoned it out of thin air, oath made flesh. Jun managed, "I think my family is trying to emotionally assassinate me," and Maddox kissed his hair. "Yes." Jun sighed, "Good. I needed confirmation." By evening, the compound felt rearranged, not safer, never that. But all the old secrets had been spoken out loud. Power shifted around the hospital, cracks opened in the old loyalties, new calculations danced behind polite smiles. Jun felt it in every glance. Nobody saw him as the traded Omega or the mostly absent grandson anymore. Now they saw possibility. He hated it at once. At dinner, Maddox murmured, "You're glaring at an ant." Jun stabbed a dumpling, eyes narrowed. "She's evaluating me like livestock." Maddox shrugged. "She's terrified of you." Jun brightened. "That helps." "It should," Maddox replied. Across the table, Aunt Shoyun toasted Jun with wine. Jun glared harder. After dinner, Chairman Han summoned them. Jun briefly considered the fantasy of pretending not to hear, but this house found him in closets as a kid, no point resisting. The study felt like a fortress of dark wood and stubborn ambition. Han sat behind his desk in a robe, cane nearby, looking strong out of pure spite. Jun's father was absent, still watched over. "Good." Jun had hit his emotional max for the day. Han motioned to 2 chairs. Neither Jun nor Maddox sat. "Dramatic," Han muttered. "Well, you trained us," Jun replied. Han's frown flickered into approval, then snapped back to business. "Cruz has moved crews north," Han said. "Your uncle signaled weakness. Predators smell it." Maddox's expression sharpened. "I've seen movement in San Pedro and Tacoma." Han nodded. "They're probing both sides." Jun crossed his arms, impatient. "So stop them." Han and Maddox both looked at Jun, one amusement, one irritation. Jun knew which was which. Han steepled his fingers. "That's why you're here." A cold dread slithered into Jun's gut. "No," he said instantly. Han smiled. "I haven't said anything yet." Jun snorted. "I know your tone." "You inherited it," Han teased. "Tragic," Jun fired back. Han ignored him with expert ease. "We formalize the alliance now," he said. The air in the room froze. Jun laughed, brittle. "Absolutely not." "It secures legitimacy," Han argued. "It rewards attempted murder," Jun replied. "It projects unity," Han returned. "It uses me," Jun snapped. Han turned to Maddox. "And you?" Maddox didn't hesitate. "No." Jun nearly snapped his neck, turning in shock. Han's brows shot up. "You object to receiving what was promised?" Maddox went icy. "I object to him being cornered." Silence thickened like glue. Jun forgot half his grievances in that moment. Han looked at them both, leaned back thoughtfully. Jun despised when old men used single syllables for deep negotiations. "I said no," Jun repeated. Han met his gaze, eyes sharp. "I heard you. I am deciding whether I care." Jun braced both palms on Han's desk. "Then hear this too." The room stilled. "I am not a treaty," Jun said, voice steady, except for one shake. "I am not repayment for dead favors. I am not proof your bloodline still matters. If I marry him, it'll be because I choose him, not because you're scared." Han held his gaze, then whispered, "Good." Jun blinked, wary. "What?" "Good," Han repeated. "If you'd accepted for duty, I'd know I failed twice." He smiled faintly, the old bastard. "You're manipulating me," Jun accused. "Always." Honest answer. Han waved them away, clearly tired. Get out. I'm tired. As they started to leave, Han added, Blackwell. Maddox paused. Ask badly, I'll kill you myself. Jun almost laughed, shocked out of his mood. They wandered the north veranda in the dark, cooled by rain. No guards close enough to eavesdrop, just ocean lights out there, scattered gold. Jun hugged himself against the wind, muttering, My family is clinically insane. Yes, Maddox said calmly. My grandfather threatened to murder you over proposal etiquette. Yes. You seem calm about it. I found it touching. Jun laughed, even tired as he was, then quieted. Maddox waited. He was good at waiting now, maybe too good. Jun stopped at the railing. When I was 13, they gave me a bracelet engraved with your initials. Maddox's jaw tightened. I wore it at the engagement dinner. Maddox murmured, You cut your wrist taking it off. Jun turned sharply. You know that? I know many things. That's disturbing. Yes? Jun faced the city lights again. I hated you for years and didn't even know you. You had cause. I imagined you monstrous. I had potential. Jun snorted, then softer. I never imagined you'd make me feel safe. Wind paused for just a second. Maddox stepped closer but didn't touch him. You do the same to me? Jun looked up. That makes no sense. It's still true. Jun's throat tightened, dangerous territory. He rescued himself with aggression. If you become poetic again, I'm leaving. Maddox smiled. Then I'll be brief. He reached into his coat. Jun tensed. If this is a ring, I'm throwing you into the sea. It isn't. Maddox opened his palm, revealing a thin silver bracelet, elegant and simple. The ring Jun had chosen at the market had been worked into the clasp. Jun stared. Made from the ring? Yes. Why? So if you ever wear something tied to me again, it'll be because you want to. Jun looked away, eyes annoyingly blurry. You are offensively strategic. I'm asking badly already, aren't I? Terribly. Jun held up his wrist. Maddox fastened the bracelet with hands steadier than Jun's breath. Jun covered it instinctively. Not trapped. Chosen. He glanced up, saw Maddox looking at him like a man standing near a holy fire. Jun stepped forward and kissed him first, slow and certain. When they parted, Jun rested his forehead against Maddox's chest. Don't propose yet. No? I'm still processing trauma. Understandable. And I want to torture you longer. Cruel. Accurate. Maddox's arms came around him, solid. Jun let them. Below, the city kept moving. Above, for the first time in the place that once caged him, Jun felt free. Freedom lasted until breakfast. It always does. Jun entered the dining hall wearing the bracelet, feeling both defensively proud and hunted. The aunts noticed instantly. A cousin gasped. A servant dropped chopsticks. Seoyeon, elegant as ever, said, Oh, good. Jewelry has begun. Jun thought about walking straight into the sea. His mother smiled into her tea. Han pretended not to notice, which meant he definitely noticed before dawn. Jun sat hard next to Maddox. No one speaks, he declared. Seoyeon buttered toast. Then remove the evidence, she teased. Jun covered the bracelet, Maddox's mouth twitching. Traitor. The next 48 hours were chaos, logistics, threats, war rooms. Crews ramped up along both coasts, shipments delayed. A warehouse in Oakland accidentally caught fire. Offers, threats, tests they poured in. Jun sat next to men who had once sent him away with tea. Now they wanted his opinion. It felt less like triumph, more like standing on a bridge built of history and gasoline. During a late-night session, Maddox murmured, "You're somewhere unpleasant." Jun looked up from maps. "I'm imagining setting all of them on fire." Maddox asked, "Emotionally or literally?" "Flexible," Jun replied. Maddox pushed a plate of fruit toward him. Jun stared at it. "You think produce solves rage?" "No," Maddox said, "but low blood sugar makes it worse." Jun ate in offended silence. That night, his father asked for June again. He looked better, though movement still hurt. Jun entered alone, sat without being prompted. His father glanced at the bracelet, smiling faintly. "Fast work." Jun nearly rolled his eyes. "You were unconscious for romance. A failing." They sat in awkward quiet until his father said, "I signed final transfer papers the day you left." Jun frowned. "What papers?" His father replied, "The portion of my holdings tied to your marriage value." Jun went cold. Even hearing it said stung anyway. "I dissolved them." Jun stared. "You could do that?" "I could always do that." Anger landed with clean force. "Why not sooner?" His father took the blow. "I was a coward longer than I was brave." Jun turned away, ache shifting from childish to that adult sense of wasted years. "I don't know what to do with you," Jun admitted. "Neither do I," his father said. "Maybe that's our beginning." Jun hated how hopeful that sounded, so he replied, "You still owe me about 18 birthdays." "Then stay for cake," his father said, and Jun laughed, despite himself. His father closed his eyes, relieved enough for it to show. Jun headed out. Maddox waited, again, with tea. "How do you keep doing that?" Jun griped. "I have networks." "You weaponize kindness." Maddox nodded. "Yes." Jun took the cup. "My father dissolved the marriage value holdings." Maddox went very still. "That means legally." "It means I'm worth less on paper." "It means you're no longer tied by that mechanism." Jun blinked, a disbelief laugh escaping him. Years spent chained by something that could vanish in a signature. He leaned against the wall, suddenly lightheaded. Maddox moved, steadying him. "You should sit," he said. "I should scream." "Also valid." Jun looked up. "I've been free longer than I knew." Maddox's gaze softened. "Yes." Emotions crashed in, unannounced. Jun was getting tired of that. Han called a family assembly that evening. No one refused, not after the chaos, the threats. The main hall filled with silk, suits, nerves, opportunists. Jun stood near the front, Maddox at his side, his mother and his father, pale but upright. Chairman Han lifted his cane. Enough chaos. The room went still. Jisung is stripped. His branch loses voting rights for 10 years. Murmurs fluttered. Any who drew predators will envy him. Silence. Then hand fixed on June. "My grandson's engagement contract is null." The hall erupted. Gasps, whispers, an aunt clutching pearls. Jun stayed absolutely still. Hand pressed on. "No debt remains between houses. No obligation binds him." Every eye swung to Jun. He felt it, stood taller. Hand turned to Maddox. "If he stands with you now, it's by his will alone." Maddox inclined his head, respectful. Jun's mother cried quietly. Seoyeon muttered, "Finally?" Jun gazed at his grandfather. "Why now?" The question hung. Han answered, blunt, "Because I was wrong too long." No poetry, no excuses, just that. Jun swallowed hard, then bowed once, not as a child, not as a supplicant, as an equal. Han returned the bow by a fraction. The hall emptied in waves. Eventually only family stayed, then close family, then 4. Jun, Maddox, his parents, and Han sleeping in his chair with ridiculous dignity. His mother laughed through tears. We should let him drool in peace. His father nodded. Tradition. Jun moved to the veranda, stepping outside. Maddox joined a moment later. No one spoke at first. Harbor lights below, ships sliding along like slow, patient stars. Jun touched the bracelet without thinking. I don't know what comes next, he admitted. You do, Maddox replied. I don't. You choose. Jun looked at him. There it was. The impossible gift. No script, no sale, no cage disguised as obligation. Choice. Jun stepped closer, smirking. You're very smug tonight. I'm hopeful. Worse. Maddox's hands settled at Jun's waist, waiting for permission. Jun slid his arms around Maddox's neck, then kissed him under Busan's night with the past finally unhooked and the future right beneath his hands. Afterward, Jun whispered against his mouth, You may ask soon. Maddox blinked. Soon? Don't ruin it. How soon? Jun smiled, slow, wicked. Wait and suffer. Maddox suffered theatrically for a week. June enjoyed it. Whenever Maddox opened doors, June would sigh, excellent husband instincts, corrected financials, strong provider behavior. Saw Maddox in a towel, promising genetics. Then he'd leave, making Maddox, who'd stared down cartel gunmen, look hunted. Jun considered it part of the healing. Busan was reeling. It didn't take long for Uncle Jisung's empire to vanish. A flick of the wrist, really. Branch dissolved, assets locked down, friends suddenly strangers. One cousin caught the Holy Spirit overnight and ran for Jeju Island like the ferry was on fire. Aunt Seo-hon, relentless as ever, tried recruiting June. Twice, actually. Over lunch, she'd say things like, You'd be magnificent, with that trademark glint in her eye. June countered, I'd be arrested. She responded, You'd be efficient, and June just said, I'd be tired. She sipped her tea, unbothered. Those are not mutually exclusive. Jun liked her in measured doses, nothing more. His father, at least, was getting better every day. Their talk stayed lopsided, awkward, sincere, and draining. Sometimes they'd trade business strategies, sometimes trade memories about June's childhood. One time, his dad apologized for missing some school play June barely remembered. The real punchline, June cried about it later, mostly out of irritation. His mother pretended not to notice and made him soup. Maddox stayed through every part of this mess. He orchestrated his international syndicate out of guest rooms, garden courtyards, and once, memorably, during a conference call while helping Jun trim a bonsai. No, move the Tacoma shipment. No, not that one. Jun, you're butchering that branch because you're incompetent, not the tree. Jun snipped loudly. It was ugly, Maddox. It was alive, Jun. Barely. Maddox muted the call for a moment, just long enough to kiss Jun's temple. Jun almost chopped Maddox's ear off. So, the proposal. It appeared exactly where Jun should have seen it coming, which meant he never saw it at all. The family's old koi garden at twilight, lanterns washed in gold up and down the path. The stone bridge shined after fresh rain. His mother duped him into coming with some excuse about discussing jasmine placement. Jun showed up suspicious, only to spot half his family lurking behind hedges. One cousin was basically a torso poking out. Aunt Seoyeon waved like a bamboo ghost. Jun pinched his nose. This is pathetic, he muttered. Maddox, perched on the bridge, replied, I asked for privacy. Your family had other ideas. Chairman Han sat in plain view, emperor style, blanket draped, watching like theater. Proceed, the chairman declared. Jun groaned. You invited him? He invited himself, Maddox said. Han nodded. Correct? Jun stepped onto the bridge. If this turns into a family circus, I'm leaving. It already is, his mother called. Jun shot her a look. She smiled innocently as a wolf. Maddox reached for Jun's hand, and Jun let him. Suddenly, the garden stilled. Maddox stared right at him, that world-shrinking gaze Jun had come to both crave and resent. Maddox confessed he had speeches prepared but had burned them. Good, Jun said. Then Maddox started. I know debt paved the road to us. I know fear walked beside you longer than I did. I know I tried to possess what I should have asked to cherish. Jun's eyes burned immediately. How annoying. Maddox lowered his voice. You taught me patience, defiance, joy. That being chosen matters more than winning. From behind a bush, someone sniffled. Could have been his mother, maybe even the chairman. Jun would never ask. Maddox went to one knee. The garden seemed to breathe in. Jun forgot his preloaded jokes. No diamond ring, no flashy nonsense, just a simple platinum band brushed matte and engraved inside, chosen in Korean and English. Jun's throat closed. Maddox said, Junhan, with no debt between us, no promises above us, and no authority over us, will you marry me? The world hung, suspended. Jun looked at Maddox. This was the man who once terrified him, who made tea during chaos, listened when no one else did, stopped trying to own what he learned to love. Jun wiped his eyes, annoyed at himself. You're offensively good at this. Maddox barely smiled. I had coaching. Aunt Seo-yeon lifted a hand, proud as ever. Jun laughed through tears, offered his left hand. Yes. And then chaos. Proper chaos, his mother cried. His father managed a single clap but winced. A cousin fell out of a bush. Chairman Han muttered, finally, like he'd waited years. Maddox slid the ring on Jun's finger, his hand steady while Jun's shook. Then Maddox pulled Jun in for a kiss, long enough to make Jun forget the audience, short enough for Seo-yeon to heckle them. Jun broke away laughing. I hate all of them. Maddox just said, you love some. Jun, selective suffering. Maddox, marriage training. Jun smacked Maddox's chest, then kissed him again, because getting it right mattered. The wedding was set for 3 weeks. Tight schedule, small and private, except private was a lost cause. Morning, half of Busan knew. Lunchtime, California tabloids had theories. Sunset, crews sent condolences, translation, threats. Maddox answered with shipping manifests that bankrupted 2 of Cruz's fronts. Jun called it flirting. Wedding planning, somehow, was scarier than organized crime. Took Jun only 2 days to realize it. His mother demanded elegance. Aunt Seo-yeon demanded intimidation. Chairman Han demanded tradition without nonsense, which translated into 17 unworkable requirements. Maddox claimed he only wanted Jun happy, a charming lie. Jun mostly wanted everyone to shut up. They met in the East drawing room, tea and nervous florists, mood boards everyone pretended weren't mood boards. Jun posted up center, warlord style. No doves, he said. Florist trembled, whispered, we hadn't suggested doves. Good instinct, Jun answered. His mother tapped fabric samples. Cream silk would suit him. Seo-yeon scoffed. He'd look expensive and edible, dress in black. Jun pointed at her. That's alarming phrasing. Seo-yeon, unfazed. It's accurate. Chairman Han lifted a hand. He wears Han jade. Jun. I'd rather eat the jade. Maddox, sitting close. Tempting, but medically discouraged. Jun covered a smile in his teacup. 2 hours later, and only doves were banned. Progress of a sort. Maddox's guest list came in. Jun expected basic names, got threat assessments in disguise, politicians, developers, a couple judges, two musicians, a retired boxer, and a nun. Jun looked up, baffled. "Why is there a nun?" "She likes me," Maddox replied. "That's impossible." "I funded a shelter." Jun stared. "You do charity?" Maddox shrugged. "Strategic mercy." "That's branded charity." "Correct." Jun kept reading. "Why the retired boxer?" "He punched me once." "Why invite him?" "I respected the attempt." Jun declared, "You're made of contradictions." Maddox, smug as ever, "You find it charming." Jun, "I find it exhausting." Maddox, "Still here?" Jun threw a pen at Maddox. Their night softened in surprising ways. Not dramatic declarations, not wild passion, though there was plenty of that. It was quiet. Maddox reading reports while Jun sprawled across his lap, pretending to ignore every word. Jun stealing the warm side of the bed, denying it ruthlessly. Late-night tea on the balcony. Petty arguments about who locked the doors. Maddox brushing distracted kisses onto Jun's shoulder, answering emails mid-affection. Jun tracing scars along Maddox's ribs, learning where hurt still lived. One night, Jun's fingertips paused near a mark by Maddox's hip. "Who gave you this one?" Maddox's hand covered his. "I did," he said. Jun looked up, surprised. "I was 19, thought I was invincible." "You were stupid." "Absolutely." Jun kissed the scar gently. "Try not to relapse." Maddox went quiet, dangerous and tender, then rolled Jun beneath him and made sincerity impossible for an hour. Cruz never really vanished. Guy adapted with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. Casino front raided, Han-linked freight broker kidnapped and returned, shaking but unharmed. Proxies sent messages. Marriage makes targets easier to find. Jun read one over breakfast, buttered his toast like nothing was amiss. Maddox watched him. "You're plotting." Jun, "I'm digesting." Maddox, same face. Jun smiled slyly. "What embarrasses Cruz most?" Maddox, "Losing control." Jun, "Too broad." Maddox, "Losing money." Jun, "Warmer." Maddox, "Losing face." Jun grinned. "That's it." 3 days later, an anonymous video dropped online. Terrible editing, killer impact. Cruz sloshed at some party, bragging about bribes, trafficking routes, and collecting pretty omegas from both oceans. Mostly real, some enhanced. Total disaster for Cruz. Within half a day, 2 allies abandoned him. Within 24 hours, one warehouse was seized by justice suddenly awakened. Maddox watched the news in Jun's suite. "You made that." Jun smirked. "I curated truth." Maddox, "You weaponized vanity." Jun, "I honored his nature." Maddox set down his coffee. "Marry me faster." "We're already engaged." "That's beside the point." Jun preened shamelessly. 2 nights before the big day, Chairman Han summoned Jun alone. The old man was waiting in the koi garden, wrapped in wool, bathed in moonlight. Jun approached carefully. "You look theatrical," Jun said. Han shrugged. "I'm dying eventually. Let me have some drama." "You've been saying that for a decade." "And yet," Han smiled thinly. Jun sat down on the bench. They watched the fish, lanterns reflecting off water. Finally, Han broke the silence. "When you were born, I thanked heaven you were beautiful." Jun flinched. Awful opener. Han sighed. "When you tested Omega, I thanked heaven you were valuable." Jun stared straight ahead. "And now?" Han's grip tightened on his cane. Now I thank whatever listens you were stronger than me. Jun had wanted perfect apologies his whole life. He imagined speeches, rehearsed phrases. The messy, honest ones stung more. You don't get absolution just because you became an interesting person late, June snapped. Han snorted. Good. Keep that tone. June's eyes burned. He hated it. Han handed over a velvet box, a jade pendant carved with the Han crest, meant for June at 13. June resisted. No. It belongs to the family heir, Han said. I'm not taking over. It belongs to the heir of character, not title. Jun blinked at him, amazed. You rewrote tradition? Han shrugged. Improved it. Jun laughed, teary despite himself, and accepted the pendant. Thank you, Jun said softly. Han looked away first. Go insult some flowers. Wedding morning, clear sunrise over Busan Harbor. Jun woke in his old bedroom, now stripped of legacy, filled with things he chose himself. His mother sat bedside, already dressed. You're staring, June muttered. I made you, she replied. Fair enough. She helped him into sharp black formal wear, hand jade at the collar and bracelet at his wrist. No cream silk, no cage. When she finished, she touched his face gently. You look like yourself. That almost broke him worse than anything else. Outside, guests gathered in terraced gardens overlooking the sea, lanterns, white blossoms, city skyline beyond blue water. Family mixed unevenly under discreet security. Maddox stood up front in black, broad-shouldered and extraordinary ring-ready. When he saw Jun, every calculation dropped. No strategist, no empire, just a man caught by love. Jun's pulse faltered. He leaned into his mother. If I trip, massacre everyone. Walk, she said, firm. So he did, down the path, toward the life he fought for, toward a man steady as the tide, toward something contracts never managed to build, something real, finally.